I see that you know your judo well.
Science.
Help! Help! I'm being repressed!
You should be ashamed of yourself for having that thought.
What?
I mean, this woman is dangerous, ladies and gentlemen.
In the Ice Age, how much taxes did people pay?
Consequences.
Equal parts. Oh my gosh. Thanks, Jeff, for the question.
He looks good, and he looks hard.
Jesus, I say that.
Well, it looks like it's that time again. Late Night Space Radio. Brought to you by yours truly. Got a lot to cover here, so we better get right to it. Yeah, if you haven't already, make sure to buckle those seatbelts, because Got a bit of an arduous journey for us to take today. Good to see everybody so far. Samina, Owen up. Mrs. Jen, Robot Cat, Styx Dragon, Geo Dragon, Brandy Nuance, Robot Cat, the Anti-Corporatist, Pecat K. Well, suppose we better get right to it. What have I got for you to start with?
Right of the Second Amendment.
Yeah, I'm gonna start in United States, where, if you didn't hear, the Supreme Court has decided to strike down the Trump-era ban on rapid-fire rifle bump stocks, which was put into place in the aftermath of the Las Vegas mass shooting.
On October 1st, 2017, a mass shooter opened fire on concert-goers in Las Vegas. Some of the gunman's weapons were equipped with bump stocks.
She had a bright future. Intelligent, beautiful, kind, just a very kind person, which is why the nonprofit is named Kindness for Chrissy, because of her kindness and generosity.
In a 6-3 decision, the U.S. Supreme Court said the Justice Department was wrong to declare that bump stocks transformed semi-automatic rifles into illegal machine guns.
In Las Vegas, this horrible person killed 60 people, injured hundreds. He shot over 1,000 times and in about 11 or 12 minutes. That's why you'd need a bump stock. And that's shameful.
Visitors to Las Vegas shared their thoughts upon learning the court's ruling.
Yeah, I like handguns. You know what I mean? Again, I shotgun at my house. Assault rifles aren't my thing. So again, I think...
Okay, now... There's kind of a lot to unpack with this, I feel like, but... First off, the suggestion that a bump stock doesn't turn a semi-automatic rifle into a machine gun is very dodgy at best. I mean, it essentially allows you to shoot that gun as fast as you can hold on to it, because it's the recoil of the gun that continues the fire. You just keep your finger down essentially on the trigger. Now, could someone potentially shoot a semi-automatic gun as fast as somebody using a bump stock? Yes. You'd also have to be very dexterous and have strong fingers, but it's possible. Doesn't mean that it doesn't make it much easier for people to just unload an entire clip into a fucking crowd with zero effort. So I don't know why we need to make those legal again. Fact is, we need to go the opposite direction. And we see shootings. We talk about shootings happening in America every single fucking day. They're not all committed with assault rifles, so getting rid of assault rifles won't solve the whole problem, but it's a start. And this is just going completely backwards in a direction I don't appreciate, even slightly. But I think most people know my opinions on guns up in this country.
Right of the Second Amendment.
Just out of control. Just fucking out of control. And the Supreme Court would like it to be even more out of control. So, you know. Yeah. Vergonia. Okay, now let's look at a... Actually, let's do it this one first, because we skipped it yesterday. But let's quickly talk about this. We already slightly discussed this in the past, as Alex Jones had been hinting at it on his show, that he was liquidating assets, and there was other reporting on it as well, because he owes $1.5 billion to the Sandy Hook families, the victims of the shooting at the elementary school there. But he's been forced now by courts to liquidate his assets, as he does not have the cash to cover this financial obligation of his. So all of his assets, including InfoWars, will be getting seized or will sold. I guess it's complicated. I think InfoWars might be getting seized. It's, you know, that part of it I might not understand. Either way, everything's gone, including InfoWars.
Today, a major step towards the families of Sandy Hook victims finally getting at least some of the money legally owed to them by right-wing conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. A judge clearing the way for Jones to liquidate his assets. Jones owes more than nearly $1.5 billion.
Apparently, doesn't have to sell. That's not what I understand. Maybe I'm going off of
after being
old
found
information,
liable for defaming Sandy Hook families, spreading lies about the 2012 massacre on his InfoWars media platform, claiming the shooting was staged, which it was not, and families and first responders were crisis actors, which they were not. Those families were subsequently harassed by some deranged fans of Alex Jones. Personal information, doxed online. The situation so bad, one family forced to move. As CNN's Hadas Gold reports, the financial situation for Jones likely means the end of his media empire built on lies.
Alex Jones's InfoWars conspiracy empire facing its final days.
This is probably the end of InfoWars here. Very, very.
Alex Jones resembles a tomato more and more each day. He's like a moldy tomato because he's got like the sort of the white, the graying beard. It looks like yeah, you're right. But you know, with a little bit of fuzz going on there because he's been sitting in the cupboard too long.
Soon.
A bankruptcy judge in Houston has approved the liquidation of Jones's personal assets, while also considering liquidating the parent company of his notorious media brand, all to help pay the nearly $1.5 billion settlement.
Okay, so apparently the InfoWars brand is potentially on the table. It's not one way or the other yet.
He owes the Sandy Hook families
$120 million.
Jones was found liable for defamation and emotional distress for his lies about the massacre that left 20 first graders and 6 educators dead in 2012. In the wake of the Newtown, Connecticut shooting, Jones told his audience the massacre was a so-called false flag operation staged by the government and that the grieving parents were actors. An attorney for some of the families says this ruling will likely take away Jones's main megaphone.
And that's what I expect to happen. I think InfoWars will no longer exist. It will certainly no longer be a platform upon which Alex Jones can do all the damage he's done in the past.
So it does sound like they're strongly considering taking InfoWars away from it. 20 likes. Wow, that's a lot. Okay, hold on, please. 12. 4. 4 is going to be an original. That's a Jessica Fletcher. That is a. I think we've already had 12, haven't we? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think that's right. Is that right? Wait. Am I counting wrong? I still haven't written these down. I suck. I think it's this. It looks like this. I think it's Gary.
Jones spouted lies even as he drove to the hearing in Houston on Friday.
No kidding.
A brazen power grab.
Leading up to the hearing, he had been vacillating between tears, more lies.
It was the FBI and the Justice Department behind all these fake lawsuits against me to get me off the air.
And naked opportunism, peddling supposed dietary supplements until the last moment.
If you
This dude with the supplements, I mean, it's impressive just how much money he has made just like bilking people out of their, hard-earned wages by saying, "Oh, you need some pills to make you more manly." Okay, all right, that's enough of Alex Jones. Very silly. It's a very silly man. Now owes $1.5 billion. Okay, let's talk about a man who's not silly, but in fact deranged, and is also a former police officer. If you haven't heard about this yet, well, brace yourselves. This is pretty gross. First word that comes to mind. Bunch of other ones come after it. Let's start here. News Channel 5. Well, these are both News Channel 5. Okay, that kind of makes sense. I suppose it's a local story. This is in Nashville, Tennessee, where Metro Police have arrested the quote-unquote OnlyFans cop named Sean Herman.
This is News Channel 5 at 6.
The Metro Nashville police officer fired after appearing in an OnlyFans video was arrested this morning on felony charges. Good evening to you. I'm Carrie Sharp.
And I'm Rory Johnston. Police now say Sean Herman was on the clock working when he took part in that video. News Channel 5 investigative reporter Levi Ismail first broke this story. I know you just got off the phone with police. What are they saying?
Well, we now know that Metro Nashville police continued their investigation even after they fired Herman last month. Metro police say Herman was on duty when he took part in the OnlyFans video where he groped a woman's breasts on camera. Police arrested Herman this morning, more than a month later.
Okay, this is completely fucking disgusting. If you're not quite understanding, I don't blame you for not understanding. It's being sort of vaguely explained. But the fact is, at least from what I have gleaned from my short time of researching on this, is that this guy had an OnlyFans account as a police officer where people were aware of the fact that he was in fact a police officer, and he would go out, misuse his power and influence, and in traffic stops such as this, would on camera, live on OnlyFans, grope women.
Illegal. On 2 counts of felony official misconduct. They say Herman was in the Madison area to film this video, which was the same precinct he covered.
What's the line on this guy being a top G? What's the line on that? This guy being a big-time agitator.
As a patrol officer, we now know the couple in the video organized this stunt with Herman, but in the weeks since, they reached out to say Herman was the one who asked to do the stunt. In the video, Herman identifies himself as, quote, Officer Johnson, before being invited to reach for the woman's breasts. We see his shoulder for a brief moment, which had what appeared to be the Metro Nashville logo. We also saw a Metro Nashville police squad car. Now, police say they found out about the video the day before we called, after we got tips sent to us as well. They said that Herman was already on a, quote, last chance agreement for misconduct with other officers, which is why they fired him the very next day.
Yeah, and as it turns out, this guy's got a bit of a pattern. He was already, as you just heard, on a last chance violation whatever the exact terminology that they just used. This dude was on his last straw with the police department, which is shocking. You have to be a real asshole, I feel like, to get in that particular thing. But you know what he was doing in his conduct as a police officer that caused him to already be in this particular... Can anybody guess? Anybody want to give me a guess? because he was asking female police department employees for nudes. Other police officers, and making incredibly distasteful, very inappropriate workplace commentary towards female employees. It's this dude. How he, and the fact is, you want to hear something even more fun? You want to hear even something more fun? Because he's now been arrested and arraigned. Want to hear something really great? This guy's on the streets. He made bail, $5,000, and $5,000 bond. So I don't even know. He probably paid 10% of that or something. So yeah, he's walking the streets right now. This guy probably has access to weapons. You would think. It just doesn't seem like the kind of guy you want to let back out there. But hey, you know. A real gross guy. Okay, let's quickly talk about this. Kind of brushed on this yesterday. In case anybody missed this, ProPublica came on to Democracy Now! To discuss and defend their work on Samuel Alito.
Police say
the Supreme Court Justice.
Well, when our guest, documentarian Lauren Windsor, recently posed as a conservative activist and secretly recorded Justice Samuel Alito talking about why he believes the Supreme Court is, quote, so targeted by the media, including by the news outlet ProPublica, which recently won the prestigious public service.
Targeted by the media. This is Sam Alito.
Surprise.
Most powerful, not the most, but one of the most powerful people in terms of in Western American society. I mean, top 10.
Pulitzer judges described as, quote, groundbreaking and ambitious reporting that pierced the thick wall of secrecy surrounding the Supreme Court to reveal how a small group of politically influential billionaires wooed justices with lavish gifts and travel, pushing the court to adopt its first code of conduct. In the audio Windsor recorded, Justice Alito said, quote, ProPublica gets a lot of money and they have spent a fortune investigating Clarence Thomas, for example. You know, everything he's ever done in his entire life. And they've done some of that to me too.
Why shouldn't people be investigating Clarence Thomas? He's also on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court deserves to be... They refuse to even allow anybody to investigate them, like governmentally, generally speaking. And they don't investigate themselves even, really. When they recuse themselves, they never have to tell anybody why they recuse themselves. I mean, they go completely unchecked. Fact is journalism is one of the only ways we manage to even check this group of people.
But they look for any little thing they can find, and they try to make something out of it. ProPublica issued a statement in response, quote, ProPublica exposes abuses of power no matter which party is in charge, and our newsroom operates with fierce independence. No donors are made aware of stories before they're published, nor do they have a say as to which stories reporters pursue. ProPublica also noted it publicly posts a list of its large donors.
Meanwhile, in other Supreme Court news, Justice Clarence Thomas has finally acknowledged taking more free vacations paid for by billionaire conservative megadonor Harlan Crow in a filing Friday. Thomas disclosed he accepted 2 trips in 2019, one to Indonesia, the other to the Bohemian Grove in California. Last year, ProPublica revealed Thomas had failed to disclose at least 38 luxury trips gifted by Crow and 3 other right-wing billionaires dating back decades. For more, we are joined by Justin Elliott, the reporter for ProPublica, whose latest piece is headlined Justice Clarence Thomas acknowledges he should have disclosed free trips from billionaire donor. Again, ProPublica recently won its 7th Pulitzer Prize for its Supreme Court coverage. Congratulations on that prize. Your response first to what Justice Alito's attack was basically on you and ProPublica, and
yes,
then
please.
The latest that you've discovered, and your response to these secret recordings.
Who is Brianna Wu? She a Supreme Court justice? Now, I think she's a lower court justice.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Justice Alito, I was surprised and disturbed by one of his comments in particular, which was that these stories were ideologically driven, that they happened because we didn't like the court's decisions. A little bit surprising to hear from a Supreme Court justice based on absolutely no facts. I can tell you exactly how these stories started because I was one of the couple of reporters doing.
Good point. I almost forgot. Yeah, we really brought it full circle with the Bohemian Grove, right back to the Alex Jones sort of trivia lore.
Which was, we started poking around on the topic of travel of Supreme Court justices. We had a big stack of public records from the U.S. Marshals who provide security to the justices. And the justices' names weren't even on those records. The names were redacted. We started to see references to private jets. And through months of reporting, my colleagues and I were able to figure out that Harlan Crow, the Dallas real estate billionaire, was providing private jet travel to Justice Thomas, and we started publishing stories about that. We took a very hard look at the Democratic-appointed justices, and we simply haven't found anything close to similar to what we found when it came to Justice Thomas and Justice Alito. So the idea that this was somehow ideologically motivated and not us just pursuing, going where the facts led is just wrong.
And what about him?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for, Alito here in this argument he's trying to make is, the facts just happen to lead to a bunch of very questionable is a very generous word, actually. What's that? I'm trying to think of the right word I'm looking for here. But yeah, when the facts lead to you having committed improprieties, that's not partisanship or politics. That's just journalism. That's the way that works. Okay. Now, wait, were we on this screen the whole time? Did nobody notice that we were stuck on that? Wait, or am I just losing it? I hope we weren't stuck on that screen the whole time. Questionable is putting it very mildly. Yeah, I mean, I was running out of adjectives, honestly. And that's my fault. I could be better. Okay, let's go to this from a day ago. CBC News in Canada, where apparently 2 of the world's most impossibly unaffordable, quote-unquote, world cities happen to be. I think I said that right. My brain just maybe broke.
In Los Angeles, an eye-catching...
No, we're skipping this one. I don't have time for you.
A new global housing report has a frank description for 2 of Canada's biggest cities, and it's summed up in 2 words. CBC business reporter Scott Peterson tells us what they are.
Impossibly unaffordable. Those are 2 words that a potential home buyer does not want to hear. And 2 of Canada's cities, again, make the top 10 most expensive city list in the world. And this is a new survey out for this year confirming that Vancouver and Toronto, 2 of the top 10 most expensive cities to live in, not just in Canada, but around the world. Here's the results of this survey, and this is by a demographic.
One side of Canada to the other. Geez, Toronto and Vancouver, that is rough.
International Affordability Survey. This is an annual list based on the median price in that city versus the median average salary. to afford that house. Basically, getting right to it, the top 10 includes the most expensive city in the world. That's Hong Kong, followed closely by Sydney. Vancouver rounds out the top 3. That's the 3rd most expensive city in the world and the most expensive city in Canada, of course. It rounds out with a lot of California properties: San Jose, Los Angeles, Honolulu, Melbourne, San Francisco, San Diego, and Toronto, rounding off that top 10 being Toronto, the number 2 most expensive city in Canada. Now, Singapore, interesting enough, has the highest amount of home ownership at close to 90%.
What I was shocked to see is that New York has fallen off this list. New York City used to be on this list and is no longer on that list, which is interesting to me. I know there's been some amount of people that have left New York City, causing certain things to be cheaper, but I don't know what would cause it to actually leave the list. I think it used to be on, like, I think it was like number 5 at one point or higher. Which, hey, I mean, not a bad thing. Just saying. Just saying. Times have changed. Let's go to this really quickly, discussing about some of this directly. This is in Toronto. This is from Global News from a few hours ago, where apparently today Toronto protesters were out demanding the city buy empty land near Moss Park for social housing.
Many in Moss Park exhausted by the saga around this empty piece of land in a neighborhood in severe need of assistance. Housing advocates spent
Every building on Fifth Avenue is empty. Yeah, well, the fact is a lot of retail spaces have closed because the way that our society is now set up is we all buy things on the internet. Well, not all of us, but the majority of people do a lot of their shopping online and therefore don't go and just walk around stores anymore down on Fifth Ave in the way that it used to be. And retail spaces have absolutely just completely emptied out. Nobody's figured out what to do with those spaces yet. We've talked about this on the stream in the past. That's not the only thing, too. There's a bunch of people just holding real estate in that area as well without anybody living in it. And it's not exactly, I don't think it's really, you know, it's not the sort of thing you can do forever without having that cause problems. Sorry, I lost my focus because that was a good point from the last video.
sunny Saturday marching and trespassing on the plot on Sherbourne, south of Dundas.
We're saying this is a line in the sand. If we lose this corner, we're in serious trouble, and it'll be very, very harmful to the people that low-income people and other people who live in this neighborhood.
230 Fight Back is calling for Kingset Capital, the developer that owns the land, and the city to come to an agreement, especially with the need for public housing in the community.
Yeah, and the fact is this guy and his company outbid the city when the land went up for sale originally. Never actually built on it, and then tried to sell it back to the city for more than what the city was trying to pay it for earlier. But he's the one who bid the price up himself, right? It is absolutely wild. And the fact is yeah, these sorts of spaces in places like Toronto, you need to be considering the low income people that live in the area, especially considering we just spoke about how Toronto was the, what was it again? The third most impossibly unaffordable city in the world. So yeah. Okay. Let's just keep moving. Just got a bunch of stuff to talk about here. Let's quickly hit on this. This is from like a day ago. Apparently another Boeing 737 Air Max had in-flight problems. Thankfully nobody was injured or killed, at least from what I understand, but it did cause a number of things to happen, including a new NTSB investigation.
All right, what happened on that Southwest Airlines flight? A federal investigation is now underway into what caused a sudden jolt on a flight on May 25th. The Boeing 737 MAX was flying from Phoenix to Oakland when it did a Dutch roll. That's when an airplane sways back and forth. This is an example of what it might look like. You can see the plane's wings kind of tilt up and down on either side, while the nose and tail wobble left to right. Investigators say the move damaged the jet. 175 passengers, 6 crew members were on board. Thankfully, no one was hurt. The FAA and NTSB are investigating after Southwest reported the incident to the NTSB on June 7th, nearly 2 weeks after it happened. Let's bring in retired pilot Doug Rice. Doug, nice to see you. This looks actually like a stunt move at an air show. What happened here? Is this the pilot doing this, or is this something?
It does look like a stunt move, and if you were just relaxing on that flight in the very back of that plane, that would have been a very sudden wake-up.
Else causing this?
No, this was the aircraft, a power control unit that operates the rudder, moved the rudder in flight. That power control unit should not have had any power. It's a standby, and it caused the rudder to deflect, which moved the airplane and the sway left and right with the subsequent roll.
Okay, Doug, if you were flying or when you were flying and this happens, did it ever happen to you? And what's the recourse for the pilot? He or she has to quickly kind of straighten things out, correct?
Correct. The pilot would be aware of it almost instantaneously because he would feel it in the nose of the aircraft, and he would also feel it in the rudder pedals.
Yeah, because suddenly you'd be flying through the air at 300 miles an hour, but kind of sideways, and then suddenly sideways the other way. Yeah, no, that would definitely, I think you'd be pretty aware of that. Also, the G-forces from doing that at the front and the back of the plane are pretty substantial. So yeah, Boeing's getting investigated again for another malfunction on board of a 737 Air Max plane. Seems like Boeing has forgotten how to build planes safely. It's probably because they've just been too busy counting their money. So it happens when stock buybacks supersede safety. Okay. Now, we got a couple of health-related stories here. First, the first one I want to talk about here is this one from Democracy Now. Because I think I may have misspoken yesterday about this. They've made it more clear. Thankfully, this is talking about the the Supreme Court ruling on mifepristone. So let's quickly look at this one.
In a closely watched case Thursday, the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously ruled to preserve access to the abortion pill mifepristone, which is used in roughly 2/3.
Wow, that's a lot of Jessicas. And in fact, you could say it's infinite Jessicas because she keeps popping in and out. So it looks like the animated Jessica Fletcher emote is finally working on Twitch. Thank you.
Of all U.S. abortions. The court did not address the safety of the pill and focused instead on the lack of standing by the anti-choice medical associations who filed the lawsuit in order to limit access to the drug approved more than 20 years ago by the Food and Drug Administration. Advocates warn the court's ruling could offer a roadmap for future challenges. Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote the majority opinion. He said, quote, "The plaintiffs have sincere legal, moral, ideological, and policy objections," unquote, suggesting the proper venue for their case could be with the president, lawmakers, or federal regulators. Vice President Kamala Harris spoke from the White House after the ruling.
This is not a cause for celebration, because the reality is certain things are still not going to change. We are looking at the fact that 2/3 of women of reproductive age in America live in a state with a Trump abortion ban. This ruling is not going to change that. This ruling is not going to change the fact that Trump's allies have a plan that, if all else fails, to eliminate medication abortion through executive action.
The Supreme Court will soon rule on another case that aims to strip pregnant people of their right to abortion care in order to stabilize an emergency medical condition. Meanwhile, Senate Republicans blocked a bill Thursday to protect access to in vitro fertilization and voted last week against the Right to Contraception Act. For more, we're joined by Michelle Goodwin, professor of constitutional law and global health policy at Georgetown University, founding director of the Center for Biotechnology and Global Health Policy. She hosts the Ms. Magazine podcast on the issues with Michelle Goodwin and is the author of Policing the Womb, Invisible Women, and the Criminalization of Motherhood. In 2021, her guest essay for the New York Times was headlined, "I was raped by my father and abortion saved my life." Professor Goodwin, welcome back to Democracy Now! Can you respond to the Supreme Court's unanimous decision, what it means and what it doesn't mean?
What it means is that mifepristone, which is used as part of a 2-drug regimen in order to terminate pregnancy, it's the majority of pregnancy terminations, abortions in the country take place with mifepristone. What this means is that it continues to be available nationwide. It means that people may not be criminally punished for using this to help a patient terminate a pregnancy. But as the vice president said, it should not be overstated what this ruling means. This was a ruling on procedural grounds, not substantive grounds, and it's worth noting how far this group of litigants got. They framed themselves as doctors who would be affected by patients who had some distress, medical distress after abortion. That itself was something of a tremendous falsehood. Mifepristone is safer than using aspirin and Tylenol. The Supreme Court has acknowledged in 2016.
Safer than Tylenol. That's quite an endorsement.
That a woman is 14 times more likely to die carrying a pregnancy to term than by having an abortion. So the underlying premise that the drug is unsafe, that abortions are unsafe, was factually not true. It was also an incredible reach that somehow this claim that the FDA had rushed this drug to the marketplace, when in the year that it was approved, the FDA had spent 3 times the length of time reviewing this drug compared to other drugs that came into the marketplace that year. So the drug is efficacious and the drug was safe, and yet these plaintiffs were able to get as far as the Supreme Court in bringing this case, and that says so much.
What role does telemedicine play?
Okay. So I think that very nicely nutshelled that for us. So it does apparently protect people, legally speaking, from not just taking the drug, but and also from doctors being prosecuted for providing the drug. Which is a huge, it's a huge victory, but it doesn't change the other laws that have been put into place in all these states. And I don't even think they talk about it, but one thing that came to mind immediately when thinking about this was, I can't remember the exact name of these laws that they were using, but we talked about this a little while ago, where throughout the South, especially around like Texas, Oklahoma, and some of the other states around there, I think like maybe New Mexico is involved in this as well, Arizona, that have these laws that essentially make it illegal to provide transportation or to even use a public road to take someone or to take yourself even to a place that provides abortion for the purposes of getting services, abortion services, right? And it's I genuinely don't know whether or not this will even affect something like that. It doesn't seem to me that it necessarily would. So yeah, there's still a lot of work to be done. Oh shit, almost forgot this. Almost forgot. Which one is it? Is it this one? Megastar. Oh. Whoa. Wait, what the heck? That's not what that's supposed to look like. That is wrong. I am offended by that. I will hydrate, but that is wrong. Hold on. Thank you for reminding me to keep myself hydrated. But what the heck? That is Bush League. That is a Bush League hydrate. Hydrate's supposed to look like this. Exactly. Thank you. Hydrate is supposed to be Kristen Wiig drinking a gigantic glass of wine in a GIF. That sweet beat behind it. Very offended by that not working properly. Okay, what was I doing? Oh, right, this. We have to talk about something very serious. And that is the top of the hour ad break. For those on Twitch, you've managed to get 9 minutes past the hour without me noticing. So, congratulations to you for that. However, you will now be subjected to ads. Thanks to this man that you see right here. Laughing. Wait, which one is it? Is it him? Or is it... Oh, yeah, that one. The dick who thanked his employees for getting him to space. And all the other people out there. Well, go fuck yourself. Okay, Jeff? Now, if you're unaware of this, people get free Twitch Prime subs every single goddamn month from their Amazon Prime memberships, which seemingly are obligated for most humans. And if you happen to have one of those, well, you might just be giving Jeffrey Bezos money every day without knowing it, instead of taking his money and giving it to your pal StreamLord. So remember that while you're watching this ad. You could be taking Jeff Bezos' money, giving it to StreamLord, and never watching ads ever again. Just a thought. Just think about it. Okay. Now let's move on to other things here. What else we have in the news? Yes, one other medical story, which is in Canada, not the United States. This is from Global News from a day ago, where apparently an invasive meningococcal disease is spiking in some Canadian provinces. And if you don't know, if I'm not mistaken, I think meningococcals relating to the
Public health officials report cases of
like the goddamn, what's the name of it? It's like a specific part of your brain. Hold on, now I have to look it up because now I feel like I'm just lying to you. I'm just guessing. I think, dummy. All right. Yeah. Okay. A meningococcal disease is a bacterial infection. It occurs commonly in two forms: inflammation of the membranes covering the brain and spinal cord.
Meningococcal disease are spiking in Manitoba and Ontario. The disease is commonly referred to as IMD. And while doctors say it's still relatively rare, it can lead to serious complications and death. Symptoms include sudden fever, drowsiness, irritability, intense headache, vomiting, stiff neck, and a skin rash. Dr. Alan Grills says the bacteria that causes the disease spreads through saliva.
Even when they don't have symptoms yet, they can spread it to other people through either sneezing or coughing on them. If you're sharing food and drinks, if you're kissing, sharing cigarettes, sharing lipstick, even when kids are in music class, if they're sharing instruments with mouthpieces, they can get it that way.
The Public Health Agency of Canada says vaccines are the best protection. Kids under 5 are at a higher risk given their immune systems are still developing. Young adults heading off to college or university also have a higher risk of exposure because they are likely to live.
You wonder if any of these mean stuff? That's just Raphael laughing. Like meningitis. Yes, exactly like that. Which can be very dangerous. Is this meningitis part 2? Let's hope not. Knock on space wood. Okay. Let us move along. Why do the emotes make you nervous? It's strange. That confuses me. What was I doing? That's right. Okay. Let's look at this. As I thought this was an interesting story, which I thought maybe could be put in practice in other places. This is also Canadian news. Oh, wait, no, I take it back. I forgot I had one more medical-related story. No, we have to go back in time. No, stop.
Break now.
I need to go back to this. Because I was actually unaware of some of the details of this case. Or, well, it's not a case. It's like a whole societal thing in America that I was just completely unaware of. I assumed for my whole life, at least, that domestic workers had the same labor protections that other employees had. I take that all back now because I just watched this story from PBS NewsHour from 6 hours ago, where, according to them, they're going to explain to us why U.S. domestic workers have fewer labor protections than other employees.
In many American households, domestic workers like nannies, housekeepers, and home health aides perform essential tasks. But as Ali Rogan reports, they also have fewer rights and protections than most U.S. workers.
Each day, nearly 2.5 million nannies, aides for the elderly, and home cleaners do jobs that allow much of the rest of the American workforce to do theirs. But despite being such a foundational part of the economy, many of these workers are excluded from key workplace protections. Those include the Fair Labor Standards Act and the Occupational Safety and Health Act, which respectively cover wages and workplace safety. Protections
Just wild. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense why you wouldn't give people that. And the fact is, I thought about it, and I think a lot of these, I should have probably looked into it, but I only watched this video a little while ago. But I've been thinking since I watched this that, you know, a lot of these labor laws were starting to get written into law before civil rights kind of happened and stuff like that. And the fact is a lot of domestic workers have historically been women and minorities, and so I think that may have something to do with this.
also vary by state. 11 states and the District of Columbia have passed their own domestic workers' bills of rights, but there is no such federal law. Members of Congress have tried and failed to pass a federal version for several years. Caitlin Henderson is a senior researcher at Oxfam, a global organization fighting poverty and injustice, where she studies how states treat workers and working families. Caitlin, thank you so much for being here. First of all, why have domestic workers historically been excluded from these sorts of protections?
So unfortunately, that reflects a long history of sexual and racial discrimination in this country, where Black women were really excluded from labor protections in the 1930s during President Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal. Unfortunately, when we were creating the social safety net that still exists today, a lot of Southern senators were very nervous about including Black workers in frameworks of minimum wages, overtime protections, and the right to organize.
And beyond their exclusion from these statutory protections, why is it that these workers are so vulnerable to mistreatment?
As you mentioned earlier, domestic workers are excluded from the Occupational Safety and Health Act, which means that a lot of protections most workers have for their workplace does not extend to domestic workers, because usually that means people's homes. So they're very exposed to issues of discrimination and harassment. Domestic workers are also not included in the Civil Rights Act from the 1960s. So they're uniquely exposed to types of vulnerabilities most workers don't have. The majority of domestic workers in the United States are women, women of color, and especially immigrants. And as another collective of workers that has also been excluded from the National Labor Relations Act, which establishes the right to unionize, a lot of these workers feel uniquely exposed and vulnerable and not as comfortable bringing up issues to their employer, especially since they are very classically at will, and their employers, which is again often families, individuals, can terminate their employment at any time.
As you mentioned,
yeah, it's ridiculous. Oh God, there are so many things that we need to fix with our society. Every single day, I feel like a different issue is brought to my attention. And, yeah, this one is wild. The fact that people, have less rights than, I don't know, your average Walmart employee, that are taking care of sick and or elderly people in their homes is wild. Just because you're in your house doesn't mean that you should be allowed to scream at employees' racial epithets or abuse them in other ways. The fact is there's a lot of complaints of sexual harassment and abuse, among other things, coming from care workers that have been complaining about these things for some time, and you know, they need to be allowed to organize. It needs to be made federal. They need to be allowed to have the same rights that everybody else who is a worker deserves and enjoys. Oh. What next? Let's... Actually, is there more of this I wanted to look at? I can't remember. I think we probably covered enough of it. We gotta move on. Okay, this I thought was an interesting story. Global news here says that apparently a automatic tax filing may be getting put into place in Canada, allowing Canadians to see billions of dollars in unclaimed benefits, according to the PBO. I don't know what the PBO is. Seems like some kind of public organization.
More than $1 billion every year. That is how much an automatic tax filing system could net Canadians who aren't claiming all the credits and benefits they're due when they file their tax returns, according to the federal fiscal watchdog. From the
PBO in Canada is the Parliamentary Budget Officer.
Canada Child Benefit, Canada Workers Benefit, and the Canada Carbon Rebate to GST or HST tax credits, it all totals billions over the years in unclaimed benefits. Now, the bulk of it is owed to people who don't file their taxes at all, an estimated 7 to 12% of Canadians. Many are from lower income and vulnerable households. Automatic tax filing was first proposed in the Liberals' 2023 federal budget. The CRA said last month it would start rolling out invitations to the service this summer. The pilot program targets financially strapped households as well as those with gaps in their filing history. But the Parliamentary Budget Office notes there isn't a clear timeline detailing when the agency would start processing automatic tax returns. For now,
I do think that this is the sort of thing that to some degree we need to have, right? In America, for instance. Oh, a third emotional support character already. Oh my god, okay. Hold on. It's an 8. Who is 8? What was I saying? Oh yes. I just do feel like, considering the massive amount of money being made on Americans in the way of tax filing services for something that is federally mandated and also state mandated, it shouldn't be a big business. A lot of this should be getting done automatically, rather than people being forced to go to whatever H&R Block or TurboTax Online and all these other things, having to shell out money to these people to do something that you're legally mandated to do. What was it? 8? Sorry. All right, now let me figure that out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Astrid Farnsworth. Okay. What was I doing? Ah, yes. Moving on. Wait, I didn't put Astrid on the other screen. She's only on one. It's my backup screen for when the software decides to blow up on me. Okay. Okay, now aspirin. You mean Astrid? Or are we talking about how mifepristone is safer than aspirin? Okay, let's quickly look at this. We talked about this yesterday, but I just want to talk about this again because this is just so stupid. This is one of the dumbest things ever. If you haven't heard, Tesla stockholders have approved a $56 billion pay package for Elon Musk for the year 2024. It'll be paid almost entirely in stock, which is untaxable until it's sold. And the fact is that this package, this $56 billion package for him, represents 140,000 times as much as the average worker receives for their yearly pension or benefits or pay. Salary. Too many words. Salary. We're staying with salary. So yeah, let's just listen to a little bit of this.
Tesla shareholders have agreed to give CEO Elon Musk the biggest pay deal in corporate history. It would award Elon Musk around 300 million shares in Tesla, equivalent to 10% of the company. That is worth some $56 billion, hundreds of times more than any boss in America made last year. A judge in Delaware blocked the original payout in January, saying the decision to award it was deeply flawed. But rather than back down, Tesla's...
So, you know how we're always talking about how CEO pay is wildly out of proportion to what they deserve? Well, Elon Musk is getting paid hundreds of times more than that. My God. Wait.
Put a similar...
Let's listen to this idiot. Hold on, they got a guy in here to talk about some stuff. Yeah, this dumb fuckhead.
Let's speak to Dan Ives from Wedbush Securities in New York.
Dan Ives here is CEO of Wedbush Securities. He has over, I think, $15 billion under management. They are a hedge fund, and he is a douchebag who loves enriching not just CEOs, but stockholders such as himself.
Dan, despite Elon Musk's hot-down praise, it wasn't a unanimous vote, and there was the prospect that he could walk at one point.
I mean, that was the worry. But ultimately, Tesla is Musk. Musk is Tesla. In the hearts and lungs of...
Bullshit. Bullshit, Dan. Musk is Tesla. Tesla is Musk. How many cars has Elon Musk built with his hands? Zero. Zero cars. He is not Tesla. It's the thousands, tens of thousands of employees that, in fact, there might even be 100,000 Tesla employees. Although he's been on a fucking axing spree this year, which we've talked about on a number of occasions. They've hit factories all over the U.S. With layoffs. But the fact that this idiot here wants to tell us somehow Tesla is Musk, I would love to see the company of Tesla without its 100,000 employees and just Elon Musk and see how that goes.
Tesla story, investors spoke loudly, and it's a pop the champagne moment for Musk.
Assholes spoke loudly is what he meant. Idiots with too much money and inflated sense of self-worth decided to bolster another egomaniacal idiot with an inflated a sense of self-worth here by giving him the world's largest yearly pay in history. Just wild and idiotic, and should be illegal. Dan Ives here, though, he thinks, yeah, he's worth 140,000 times more than every employee at Tesla. That's his vibe. That's his bag. What a douchebag. Okay, sorry. Sorry for my language, but Dan Ives sucks. Is this an Orthodox Jewish stream? That is factually incorrect. Factually incorrect. I know plenty of Orthodox Jewish people, but I'm not really down with the patriarchal vibes of the Orthodox. They might have decent views on Zionism and Israel, but it takes a turn real quick once you start assessing the rest of it. You know, it doesn't. It starts really ringing with a lot of the other sort of patriarchal religious sort of communities that we criticize constantly. What am I doing? Ah, yes. Let's go to this. Time for the climate and other things here. Let's start with this, because I thought this would be a good segue, considering all the things we were just talking about and what we're about to start talking about. This is CNBC television, where for the first time ever, they care about climate change. Can you guess why? Anybody want to give me a guess on this one?
Welcome back. Real estate remains in focus with interest rates close to 7%, but the rising cost of capital may pale in comparison to a new worry for homeowners. In some cases, climate change causing home values to literally fall off a cliff. Diana Olick reports in the latest installment of Rising Risks.
From Dana Point, California, to Long Island, New York, to Nantucket, Massachusetts, some of the nation's priciest coastal real estate is in an increasingly precarious position due to climate.
Yeah, so CNBC is concerned about climate change for the first time ever because all these $10 million, $20 million coastal homes are under threat and their prices are plummeting.
Climate change.
They're buying them knowing they're going to lose them.
This Nantucket home was listed last summer for just over $2 million. But in the fall, a barely notable nor'easter wiped away an astounding 70 feet of the beach it sits on, thanks to sea level rise and unusually intense rainfall. The house sold this year for just $600,000. The buyer told the Boston Globe the price mitigates the risk, and it's not the only one.
There's been
The price mitigates 600,000. Wow. Okay.
one sold in the mid sevens and
To
one
be
sold in the mid eights.
that rich.
Which I know that sounds like a lot of money.
It does.
But those houses, if they weren't at erosion risk, would have sold for, I don't know, 10, 12 million.
Nantucket real estate agent Shelley Lockwood just launched a seminar for fellow agents to help them reprice homes at risk.
I saw houses sell.
God damn it. What's the name of that show? Doesn't this give everybody like a Selling California vibe? Like they're trying to, it feels like the only way they know how to shoot these is like with the vibe of, and like edit it all. It just really does feel like one of those real estate shows, but instead they're talking about how the coastal real estate market is actually just collapsing. It's a weird vibe, not gonna lie.
And I thought, oh my God, that's not worth that. It's falling in the ocean.
On the eastern end of Long Island, in Montauk, back-to-back storms this winter had the community scrambling to bolster its beach.
Wait, that's not it. What's it called? Is it Selling Beverly Hills? I think there actually might be a bunch of different shows with a similar title like that, which is why I'm just getting confused. People know what I'm talking about, though, right? Please tell me people know what I'm talking about.
And protect its multi-million-dollar homes as the water came in faster than ever before.
Where we've seen flooding in the past and the water subsiding right away, it's not subsiding anymore. We have a friend that's has a $10 million home, and he's not even sure what to do with it, because if he sells it, it's never going to be the $10 million that he bought it for.
Looking at zip codes just on the east and Gulf coasts of the U.S., these 33 have a median.
So yeah, I mean, all these rich people with these coastal properties are sitting on a literal like a house of cards right now, with all of these properties essentially pretending like the value hasn't plummeted, right? It's also similar things to what's been happening with like commercial real estate in big cities, right? But it's a different vibe. This one's climate change. The other one has to do with a social change. But the fact is like, like all these properties, from what it sounds like, have lost 75% of their value or more. But they're still the state keeping them up on, you know, like what's the word? So as to not incur massive losses, right? And to like start some sort of a panic around all of this.
Home value of at least $1 million. And in just these areas, a combined 77,000 properties are at significant flood risk, according to models by First Street, a climate risk data and analytics firm. That is roughly $100 billion.
You want me to imagine having sex with a bank, Shakespeare? What are you, a bankosexual? Not that there's anything wrong with that.
In potential losses.
I think we just put our head in the sand. Values weren't going down until the last 10 years, and it's still been kind of a quiet reduction.
Attorney Chris Farley is working with Nantucket homeowners to help reduce their property taxes as both the beach and their values erode. Some homes have been reassessed while their neighbors haven't.
This house behind me, for example, is $2.2 million, but the house 2 doors down is $500,000 for their land.
Aquaman's new HGTV show. I like that one. That's a good one. Welcome to this once beachfront property turned reef / sandbar. I'm Aquaman. Can I interest you in a scone? Now this neighborhood's really coming up, I want you to take a quick look around you at the views that you got here. Yeah, we're talking about big money here. 100 billion was the estimate in losses from one organization that are just kind of sitting there implied in all of this happening. Let's move on. Actually, you know, no, I want to watch more of this. Why am I stopping?
Value, and the house on the other side of that is 250,000.
All three homes sit on the same cliff that is quickly losing ground.
In the last 6 months, this has eroded, I would say, 12, 15 feet of sand is gone.
And these protective tubes?
So we're not supposed to be seeing this.
This should have been covered.
On one beach, it's erosion. On another, the rising ocean has pushed sand so far as to bury the homes.
This was not like this last fall. This has happened this quickly.
All this sand coming up here like a snow dune.
See that? That was their septic.
So in 9 months. And you can see it. Yeah. Like, wow. Yeah, this entire fence, like the bottom rungs are covered in sand. And that stairway going to this home no longer needs to be there. In fact, it's completely submerged in sand as well. The sand is higher than the stairs now. That is wild. That is wild. Is it wrong of me to derive any amount of enjoyment from seeing incredibly rich people have to deal with this? Maybe that's wrong. That's wrong. Oh yeah, they can't get insurance either. No, absolutely. Absolutely, Jerry. That's a huge thing we've been talking about here the last few months. People getting their insurance rates either doubled or just canceled outright with no negotiations from the insurance company. Entire neighborhoods just nope, no more insurance for you. That's it. We've also talked about how FEMA is paying out billions of dollars every year to people who live in catastrophic zones that continuously flood their properties or otherwise. It's usually flooding. In fact, I think like 100% of them are flooding or something close to that. And so, yeah, it's like, you know, it's a real problem right now being created by climate change and made worse by the capitalist system that we have currently set up to deal with these sorts of things, like housing. FEMA excludes Florida entirely. Is that true? I never even heard that one. How is FEMA going to take Alex Jones camping? Don't they have some sort of like a underground bunker somewhere? Bohemian Grove. Okay, I'm going to stop saying stupid Alex Jones conspiracy theories. Okay, no more Alex Jones. Last one. Okay, now let's talk about something slightly less shitty. In fact, let's talk about something productive for a moment. This is from 10 months ago from a little channel by the name of Not Just Bikes. Designing urban places that don't suck.
It's one of the most iconic parts of California.
Oh wait, I forgot to look at this, although this is basically the same thing we were just talking about. But shit, let's just do this really quickly. Is it necessary? I feel like it's not necessary. No, shit, we're just going to this one.
Have you ever walked through a great city and thought, wow, I love this place?
Places that are unique and interesting. Places where you feel like grabbing a drink and sitting down to enjoy yourself. Places you purposefully go to on vacation. Places that are memorable. And of course, there are urban places that are miserable. Places you go to only if you have to. Places you leave as soon as you can. Places that are forgettable. What is it that makes some places great and others, well, not? One key factor is what urban planners call a sense of place. When you get it right, you know it. And when you get it wrong, you end up feeling like you're in no place at all. When you're somewhere with a strong sense of place, it feels...
Now, I just want to talk about this, and I know this is about urban planning, but the fact is the way that we have planned places like the United States to be completely car-centric, with urban sprawl everywhere, and like he was showing, just desolate parking lots and continuous strip malls for much of America. We are contributing to climate change in ways maybe most people aren't thinking about, but I think people are aware of just how much this is adding in terms of hydrocarbons, and it's quite substantial. The way that we're living is directly contributing to the environment at large.
Unique. The Great Market Square in Bruges doesn't look like Santorini's Ia Street, which doesn't look like Rocio Square in Lisbon. That makes it hard to generalize about great places, but still, there are a few characteristics that most of these places share that can give us an idea of how to build better urban places. The first is a sense of enclosure. Some planners think of spaces like city squares and streets as public rooms, and to make a room, you need walls. There are no hard and fast rules for enclosure for streets, but one rule of thumb that's often mentioned in urban planning documents is to have no more than a 3-to-1 ratio of street width to building height, or the other way around, and no more than 6-to-1 for public squares. And for what it's worth, many of the best examples of great streets do have this kind of ratio, and many of the best examples of terrible streets don't. That being said, there are examples where this doesn't fit at all. St. Peter's Square in the Vatican definitely has a great sense of place, but it's also very wide with about a 12-to-1 ratio of width to height, though it does have an obelisk to break it up in the middle. Of course, these extreme cases only work when they don't have cars in them. This would entirely lose its sense of place with Toronto's Highway 401 running through it, which would actually fit, though you'd have to bulldoze the basilica. Regardless, feeling like you're in a specific public room helps define an area's sense of place and makes it distinct from other places nearby. If you're on a particularly wide street or large square, there are other ways to create a sense of enclosure. Planners might use trees on the sides or in the median of a road, or...
Yeah, absolutely. Hold on. Can't watch this whole thing. You know that corner in Las Vegas? Wow, it's very specific.
To give an area a sense of enclosure when there needs to be ample free parking. This makes everywhere feel like one sea of mediocrity. As you travel through these areas, every place feels like every other place. What makes this crappy strip mall any different from this one thousands of kilometers away? They feel like the same place, which is to say, no place. At least this one in LA has palm trees, but it still sucks. This lack of place is why standing in a parking lot like this feels so depressing. Places with lots of surface parking lots totally lose their sense of enclosure and end up feeling lifeless and empty. Of course, the cars and asphalt everywhere don't help either. Compare this suburban shopping area in my hometown to this recently renovated downtown street in the same city. And to be clear, this doesn't have to be a downtown versus suburbs thing. This street and this street are the same distance from their respective city centers, but one is designed primarily for people while the other is designed primarily for cars.
And business, right? That's the other thing going on here, right? I think it's pretty obvious when you look at it. Much of these places, if you look on the right here, what did he say this was? I don't even remember is this Amsterdam? I don't remember. Either way, like you can see there's like places for people to live here. On the other side, it's, you know, it's all just retail businesses, just interspaced by parking lots and terrible 5-6 lane roads going through suburbs. Ugh, God. 41 likes, that is wild. That is insane. I don't even believe it. Who is 19? Alright, let's just wrap this up.
Turning this unique place into just another mall. This is why Amsterdam has been recently controlling the types of shops that can open in the city center. Sorry, Five Guys will need to open somewhere else. So of course, the 17th century canal ring of Amsterdam has a strong sense of place. There's nowhere quite like it, which is why it's flooded with tourists from all over the world and most locals avoid it. But it sure was nice during the coronavirus lockdowns. But really, almost every place I visit in Amsterdam has some sense of place. All of these places feel unique and different, and I've noticed a very remarkable difference in how I navigate here. In North America, I think about streets and roads. My mental map is based on major streets and cardinal directions. But in Amsterdam, I think about places. I'm in one place, and I think about all the places I need to pass through in order to get.
It is weird seeing a trolley going over grass. It's it's throwing me off. I kind of love it.
Another place. My mental map is full of the best
Why
routes
can't
from
we have
one
nice
place
things
to
in
another,
America?
and I think about the city as a series of unique places. This strong sense of place makes the city mean something to me. I actually care about these places, and I like being in them. There's a common response I get when showing video from car-dependent places. People say, this looks just like where I live, but I know it's not. Because when you design a place for cars...
I'm sorry, I just saw the Nightbot comment. I've completely lost my focus on this video now. Because that is fucking hilarious. Wow, Nightbot. That's a bold move. One of the dumbest things Cisco did was refusing to perform his hit song Thong Song at a concert in 2018, angering fans and making headlines for being quote-unquote unprofessional. I find it funny that in 2018 he's being deemed unprofessional for Thong Song, when in fact he was being criticized for Thong Song when it was released. If I recall correctly, there were some assholes out there being like, oh, this is too sexual. But hey, times have changed. To some degree. Speaking of changing times, let's talk about this from a couple of days ago, where wildfire season is expected to come earlier and more active in the West, where fires have already started.
Video and images from the Grove Fire near Spokane and the Pioneer Fire northwest of Chelan show fire season is here. Strong winds expanded the Pioneer Fire to more than 1,100 acres overnight.
Conditions were a little dry, and this fire is burning in extremely difficult to access terrain.
So yeah, and it's currently 0% contained right now, which is not what you want. the opposite of what you would want. But like he was saying, it is in a very difficult to access place for firefighters. Let's look at another fire that we were talking about in Colorado, which is still going on. This is a flyover of the Interlaken fire in, oh shit. I guess it's Interlaken? I think that's the name of the place. Somewhere outside of Denver. In Colorado. Okay, here's the Interlaken fire. I'm not seeing a fire in this video, actually. There was one way over here. This dude getting the footage is really bad. Oh, I see. There's one up here, too. Oh. Oh, it's just kind of in a bunch of different spots. Well, according to that one text they decided to put on there's a full suppression effort underway. Not sure what that means. Oh, more Infinite Jessicas on Twitch, I see. Okay, now you're probably aware of this, but maybe not. But hurricane season has started, and a subtropical storm hit Florida over the last couple of days, in which during part of that storm, historical hourly record was broken for most rain ever in 1 hour in Florida, which is saying a hell of a lot. I figured we would just look at these. I found a new video on some of this stuff. I just figured we'd look at this again in case anybody somehow missed this, because you know, Florida gets a lot of rain, but usually the floods go away pretty quick. In this case, no. Because of this incredible amount of rain that happened in such a short period of time, the flooding itself, the water just kind of stuck around. Usually, it would probably subside quicker. However, with that kind of rain, you got things clogging drains. You know, with that amount of water moving around, it's going to push around sediment and other things, causing it to clog drains, which is a huge problem, right? if it's not exiting the area, suddenly everything becomes waterlogged and honestly dangerous for people. This is another video on the same thing.
Looked like a beginning to a zombie movie. Just cars littered everywhere on top of sidewalks, in the median, in the middle of the street.
13 years, there's been storms, there's been rain, heavy rain, but never like this. This is extreme.
I don't think I want to stay around here because guess what? It's only going to get worse. And honestly, I don't want anything to happen to myself or my family.
Two very different scenes of extreme weather are impacting areas down south. In South Florida, heavy rainfall is causing unrelenting flooding for a fourth consecutive day. Rain has surpassed 20 inches in several areas. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has declared a state of emergency in 5 counties. Meanwhile, Atlanta finds itself in the center of a heat wave. The city is bracing for temperatures that will tease triple digits this weekend. We have team coverage for the latest on the severe weather across the South. Let's go ahead and begin in Miami with CBS News national correspondent Manuel Bojorquez. So what is the cleanup like? I mean, there's still standing water everywhere. And is the area where you are expecting more rain?
The rain is in the forecast for today and even going into tomorrow. That's the big concern here, because even a moderate amount of rainfall would be falling on already saturated soil. Throughout the day, because we haven't had much rain yet today, we've noticed that the water has started to recede in a lot of the neighborhoods that have been impacted. But yes, in pockets like here in this neighborhood in Miami, you still have all this standing water. You can imagine the headache that's causing for homeowners here.
Yeah, no kidding. The water is 27% tanning oil. My God. Could be. I don't know. We'd need to do some kind of analysis on that. But yeah. This wasn't even a hurricane. Just a storm. Just a storm. And yet it's caused massive flooding in Florida. Okay, let's move on to this. This is from a day ago, where apparently dairy farms are trying to reduce their climate impact with something called methane digesters. But the communities are worried about its expansion.
California is America's leading dairy producer with 1.7 million cows.
Yeah, this is Wickstrom Jersey Farms. We milk about 2,500 cows here since 1973. We ship to Hillmar Cheese, so all our milk's produced into block cheese products.
But cows and their manure are major sources of methane, a potent greenhouse gas. That's why California is encouraging dairies to reduce their climate impact with methane digesters.
While it's in there, the plastic cover is capturing all the methane that manure liquid emits. So instead of going into the atmosphere, it's captured and sent in a pipeline about 20 miles to their ethanol plant.
Over the past decade, about 120 methane digesters have been installed in California, and more are being built. The methane is captured and piped to processing plants, where it's converted into biofuel to power vehicles.
In the last 5 to 7 years, companies like ourselves have come in, worked with the dairymen, resolved their methane mitigation issues, and then also provided them with a revenue stream.
Whoa, what just happened?
But environmental advocates worry that methane digesters will lead to more cows and air pollution.
This isn't like a small mom and pop farm. This is thousands of cows that are...
Yeah, thousands and thousands of cows. And we can't... The fact is there's some definite issues with this, right? That are obvious, right? It's just it's a band-aid on a problem that is very much not band-aid sized. And while it may in fact wind up, wait, did Twitch just take an ad break on me? How dare you, Twitch? Okay, Twitch just took an ad break without me asking it to. That's very rude. Very, very rude. But yeah, the animal agriculture industry, especially as it relates to cattle, is one of the biggest contributors to climate change, honestly, that we don't talk about very much. We should probably talk about it more, but we don't, and it is not going to be solved by methane digesters, right? It's just not going to do it. Okay, now we talked about this one yesterday, but I figured we'd talk about this again, as it's an important story on multiple levels. So we've talked about how Panama has been dealing with drought conditions, and that many people there are facing water scarcity conditions. That is also causing the Panama Canal to allow less traffic through the canal than usual, as without the necessary water, they're forced to do so. But it is also forcing people to take different routes, which are longer, with tankers, things like that, which is also contributing to climate change. So it's a kind of a double-pronged story, this one. Between the end of the Panama Canal's fiscal year, end of September, and the beginning of the next one in October, there should be close to 36 daily ship crossings. As long as the maritime industry reacts according. But as you can see, there's just a massive, group of ships just waiting here in the, I guess, what bay is this? I can't even think of what bay this would be. Panama. Either way, they're all waiting to use the canal. Which can also wind up having environmental impacts depending on how long they're forced to wait there. Where am I in my list? I lost my spot. Okay. Let's quickly look at this. If you haven't heard, the world's largest wetland in Brazil is on fire, as it's also in a drought. This is a video from a day ago where retirees talked about their futures with the state of this fire.
Fatima Brandao is searching for her chickens in a haze of smoke. The source? Fires tearing through the world's largest tropical wetland in central western Brazil faster than ever before. Brandao just turned 59. She's lived her whole life here and says she's never seen anything like it.
There never used to be smoke here. The sun shone clearly and the sky was always blue. Now the whole hill is on fire and smoke has clouded the entire area.
Experts say this year could overtake 2020 as the Pantanal wetlands' worst year for wildfires on record. After a shortfall of rain disrupted seasonal flooding, scientists blame an amped-up El Niño weather pattern fueled by climate change. The worst of the usual dry season is still ahead. These wetlands are about 10 times the size of the Florida Everglades and home to animals like jaguars and anacondas.
I feel a lot of sadness, because if we are here, we are breathing, and we think that breathing is critical. Imagine what the animals in the field are experiencing.
The people who...
Wow, Nightbot is very contentious in chat today. Unexpected. But, yeah. People that live in this wetland area in Brazil are now at serious risk, multiple risks. I mean, having to inhale, smoke from wildfires all day is also a risk. But they're also at risk of having their homes just completely destroyed by this. What's next? Okay, we're gonna just watch another piece of this TRT World episode from their Just 2 Degrees podcast, discussing the heat records shattered in May. Hold on. Kind of want to start at us. Where did we start off last time? We started here. Let's start here.
Continues worldwide, but particularly in this region, these summertime periods of extreme heat waves will become more frequent and also more intense and also will be longer lasting.
Well, the heat in Asia is a stark reminder of the peril we're all facing and just how much further we need to go to avoid a worsening crisis. Well, a new report is giving insight on the state of global renewable energy. Moran 21, a network of scientists, governments, NGOs, and renewable energy industry agents, has published the latest edition of its Global Renewable Status Report. The group has been tracking renewable energy targets, policies, and progress since the year 2005. The new report includes the latest details and insights on the successes and challenges involved, giving us a big picture view of how far we have and haven't come with renewables.
So basically, the recent study is looking specifically at renewable energy in the demand sectors, so in buildings, industry, transport, and agriculture. And unfortunately, we see here that we don't stand in a very good space, I guess. When we're looking at the overall energy demand, renewable makes out 12.7% basically of the total demand, or total energy we consume. So the largest part is still fossil fuel. And I think what we see as an alerting space is that we had basically in response to the energy crisis and also geopolitical, but also COVID, really an uptake of energy consumers and also governments really fostering not only the supply of renewables, but also the fact that we use more renewable energy. And today we see that only 13 countries have implemented renewable energy policies in all 4 end-use sectors. So buildings, agriculture, industry, and transport. And this
Only 13 countries. That is fucking sad. Which is why we're only at 12.7% renewable energy right now, when 2030 is the freaking cutoff point on so much of this stuff in terms of getting ourselves to a sustainable future climate-wise, and yet nobody seems to be taking any real concern with this. It's very distressing.
is very worrying because the transition needs to happen by investing in renewable energy capacities to provide the supply, but also ensuring that we're basically consuming and using renewable energy.
According to your report, I think only 12 or 13 countries, the UK, the US, a few EU countries, China, Egypt, India included, had implemented renewable energy policies in those sectors you talked about, including transport and agriculture. For example, by the end of last year, you describe a so-called uneven playing field in the renewable sector. What do you mean by that?
So there is very clearly an uneven playing field because we those sectors when we're looking into building, industry, and transport that make the major consumption. They will not consume power, so electricity, but they are going to consume heat and fuels. And these are highly dependent on fossil fuels. And these fossil fuels which we are consuming are highly subsidized. They remain, basically, we still see globally, these are the most recent numbers.
Exactly. That's one thing that I think people forget a lot about, is that the oil and gas sector is constantly getting government money. We could, and they're constantly complaining about, oh, green energy isn't economically feasible. Well, how economically feasible would oil be if it stopped receiving subsidies? How economic is it to keep using oil if it's going to destroy the very system that it supposedly upholds? It's just stop it, We gotta stop it. People have very ridiculous plans for how to get through this, and subsidizing oil just needs to stop immediately. Oh god, what was I doing? Some big ass trucks? Those are some big ass trucks, you're right. Hold on, we got more to listen to here. Hey, don't play with me. Why are you playing?
Territorial waters to the mining industry, but would only do so if an impact assessment proved that deep-sea mining could be done with little to no environmental consequences. But the country has since decided to permit mining for critical raw materials like cobalt and lithium, both of which are used in electric cars, by the way, a rapidly growing industry. It's important to note that these minerals are also used to produce solar panels and wind turbines, which suggests they're essential in the global transition away from fossil fuels. That said, Norway's decision has received fierce local and EU opposition.
So here in Norway, we have had quite a short process, an opening of the deep sea for deep sea bed mining. They have done that without the proper and adequate impact assessment on how an activity was actually, which consequences it will have for the environment.
Yeah, no kidding.
So part of the process, when you're opening up a new area for activity here in Norway, you have to do a proper consequence impact assessment to know the consequences of a new activity. And what we are stating, the Norwegian government hasn't done so.
So then, are you suggesting that this impact assessment was not comprehensively done or possibly even rigged?
Yes, that's correct. Part of the process is the own Directorate for Environment, which is the kind of government body here in Norway, who's looking at the impact on the environment, and said quite clearly that there hasn't enough information. We don't have the data available to know the potential impact for deep sea bed mining. So this is an area the size of the UK, which we don't know all that much about. So 99% of the area we don't have data on. It hasn't been looked at kind of what lives there, what's the marine ecosystem, and so on. So you can't do a proper impact assessment and knowing the impact of the activity because we actually haven't done the proper assessment of knowing what the status of the marine ecosystem is.
Yeah, we already know the marine ecosystem is under threat right now. We don't need to add more problems to our oceans, right? And from everything that I've seen about deep sea mining is that the threats posed by it are different in every spot and are definitely real. Real problems exist with this technology, this practice of attempting to mine the ocean floors for rare earth minerals. Seems like a deeply idiotic idea. Oh, a bunch more people are showing up. I haven't even said what's up to everybody here that's shown up, but I think I saw at least, geez, like a dozen new people show up. PB, Atticus Among Us, MIDI Doctors, Soul Life is awake somehow, shockingly. Obsessive Audio, Schmegley. Who else? Omega Star, Jerry. Bunch of people. Okay. Now, what else? Oh, I guess it's that time now. Well, I hope you've been enjoying the show so far. If you haven't already, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Really helps me out. In fact, we need 500 subscribers to get this goddamn YouTube channel monetized. Everyone are going, well, hey, is there a way that I can somehow support the Galactic News Network? Well, yes, there is. By becoming a Galactic producer on Patreon. Where space benefits unseen by the rest of the Milky Way galaxy will be yours. Things like adding your own flair to this scene you see in front of you here. Or perhaps here. Or even here. Up to you. You also get access to sweet galactic shoutouts and exclusive materials, as well as even, well, can't even say it, but there may even be something very, very secret that only Discord would give you the answer to. So yeah, get in the Discord as well. That said, it's time for a Galactic intermission. So grab yourselves a drink, perhaps a snack, and I'll be right back. Is the Twitch up and running? Yes, the Twitch is up and running. You can now donate and subscribe, get access to sweet, sweet galactic emotes on Twitch. Hopefully we'll be able to migrate some of those emotes over to YouTube once we get the YouTube monetized, but yes, Jeffy Bezos has deemed me eligible to receive sweet, sweet galactic donations. What scene was that? That's the Galactic Lake. You've never seen Space Lake? Space Lake. It's been around for a long time. Just sitting out here in my inner tube. Got a whole folder of scenes and things unused that are either under construction or whatever else. I've got a massive backlog of stuff that I'm trying to get done for this stream. If only I had more hours in the day, it might all be done already.
equal parts. Oh my gosh.
Climate and everything are the same word.
You should be ashamed of yourself for having that thought.
Thanks, Jeff, for the question.
Don't be creepy.
Okay. Since I found these two stories to be of such importance, we are going to look at both of them again today to start off our global coverage. Both these stories regard the entire Earth and humanity itself. First one's from Reuters from 2 days ago. According to the UNHCR, 120 million people have been forcibly displaced in just 2023 alone.
Some 117 million people were forcibly displaced by the end of 2023, marking the highest number on record, according to the latest statistics from the United Nations Refugee Agency. Speaking earlier this week,
The most ever. 120 million people.
the UN's High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, said the number of forcibly displaced people has been increasing every year for the past 12 years.
The last figure that we have been sharing with you, if you recall, was 114 million. So we estimate that the most updated figure is now 120 million. So it has gone up by another 6 million. These are refugees, asylum seekers, internally displaced people, people being forced by conflict, by persecution, by different and increasingly complex forms of violence.
The UN's new report on global trends in displacement estimates the number has only increased in the first 4 months of 2024, with conflict being a major driver of displacement. Grandi singled out the war in Sudan as one of the most catastrophic ones.
Now, you notice that in this UNHCR report, there is no mention of people displaced by climate change. And the fact is, we've been looking at story after story this year of different people being forced to leave their homes. But in many cases, they're just being displaced internally. But there are, in fact, now real climate refugees, people who are forced to leave their entire country because there's nowhere to go.
It is a crisis that, and this is not applying to you who report from here, so hear about that a lot, but generally doesn't really make it to the headline. Is a very forgotten crisis, although it's one of the most catastrophic ones, not just in terms of displacement, but in terms of hunger, lack of access, violation of human rights, and so forth.
Speaking.
Yeah. Okay, now let's go on to this one. This is, I think, from, is this Democracy Now? I think it's Democracy Now. Yes, this is from Democracy Now, where, according to them, the number of global armed conflicts currently taking place on the Earth has reached a new post-World War II high. So I guess since, what, 1945, last 80 years, we have not seen as many conflicts as we are seeing right now.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.
The United Nations Refugee Agency announced earlier today that a record 120 million people are now displaced around the world. Filippo Grandi, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, spoke in Geneva.
Oops, what's going on here?
The last figure that we have been sharing with you, if you recall, was 114 million. So we estimate that the most updated figure is now 120 million. So it has gone up by another 6 million. These are refugees, asylum seekers, internally displaced people, people being forced by conflict, by persecution, by...
You know, and we talk about a lot of big numbers around here, but just think about that revision itself, not the whole number. That 6 million person revision is essentially like, it's pretty high likelihood that you happen to live in a place that is either 6 million people or less. I could be wrong on some of those, on some of you. I'm not saying all of you, but many of you probably happen to live in places that are smaller than that, or of equivalent size, which would mean that everybody in your city or town being just a revision on a number of people displaced. The whole, you know, the whole place.
Different and increasingly complex forms of violence. The way conflicts are conducted by the parties, almost everywhere, by almost all parties, in complete disregard of the laws of war, of international humanitarian law, and often with the specific purpose of terrorizing people, of making people instill fear in people. This, of course, is a powerful contributor to more displacement than even in the past.
This comes as a new report from the Peace Research Institute Oslo has found there were more armed conflicts last year than any year since World War II.
So yeah, I just wanted to look at this map again, really, because it is wild just how many conflicts there have been last year alone. And many of these are, pretty much all of these are still going on right now. Yeah. And it's just insane. Covers like half the globe. Just keep seeing Jessica Fletcher pop up in my my peripheral right now on Twitch. It's fucking hilarious. It really is infinite Jessicas when you think about it. The Jessica GIF, I'm gonna have to rename it to Infinite Jessica or something, because she just keeps popping up with her smile and her thumbs up. Okay. Dun dun dun. Now let's talk about more things here. First, we're going to talk about this. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. I just want to touch on it again because this was something of a escalation in U.S.-Russia tensions. If you're not aware, a Russian warship showed up in the Bay of Cuba, or whatever that is there. And it's being seen as a show of force by Russia.
Now, 3 Russian warships and a submarine have arrived in Cuba. That's around 90 miles off the US coast. The ships will be carrying out military exercises. Cuba says it does not represent a threat to the region. Likewise, US officials have said the drills are non-threatening. though it comes as tensions are still high between the US and Russia over the war in Ukraine. While hosting his Cuban counterpart in Moscow on Wednesday, the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, said Moscow was grateful to Cuba for its principled position on the situation around Ukraine. Now, it's important to note the Russian warships are not believed to be carrying nuclear weapons. But what exactly are they doing in Cuba? Let's take you to Mexico City. Our correspondent there is Will Grant. And Will, let me put that to you. What are those military ships, submarines, doing in that location?
Well, in essence, I think there's two very, very clear messages that they're sending. The first, which is perhaps less surprising and to be expected, is a sort of underscoring of the relationship between Moscow and Havana. You mentioned there Sergei Lavrov and the comments he made about Cuba's position on the war in Ukraine. Cuba has been a loyal ally to Russia for decades now, and of course to the Soviet Union before then. So that solidifies that relationship, but of course, the one that most...
But you're offended by the fact that that map didn't include all the mass shootings in America, or just in general the shootings in America? That doesn't count as an armed conflict on the map. No, it did not. And I think that if those were also counted, the whole world would just be lit up. Although, yeah, no, pretty much. American obsession with Cuba is, yeah, well, the problem with this whole situation is, you know, United States has kept Cuba under embargo, the longest embargo of history, modern history at least, from what I'm aware of, and, you know, it has caused a great deal of suffering for the Cuban people. That said, I'm not a huge fan, or in fact, I'm an anti-fan of all of the military sort of positioning and, you know, saber rattling that's happening, not just in this particular situation, but all over the world right now. The fact is most days I think America forgets entirely about Cuba, at least the general population. They forget that it exists. And most of them seem fine not thinking about it ever until it's convenient for them to talk about it. Yeah, and our politicians have been fine continuing on those embargoes and things indefinitely for decades. Has anyone had the biggest Cheez-It thing from? No, I have not. I've not heard of that. What was I doing? Oh, yeah. Okay, now let's go across the pond to France. Yesterday we were talking about Emmanuel Macron, who called for snap elections in the entire lower house of the French government, similar to, say, the House of Representatives from the United States. And so every single person in that body is now having to go up for election. He defended this yesterday in a statement where he claimed that the left and the right, the far left and the far right, well, that's specifically how he said it, were essentially one and the same, and kind of blaming them both equally for the losses in the most recent EU elections of oh shit, what's the name of Emmanuel Macron's party? I can't even remember it now. Either way, Emmanuel Macron's party definitely had some defeats in the most recent EU elections, but also called for later on in the speech for people to band together against the far right in Paris. Not in Paris, but in France, specifically. I don't know why I just said Paris. Oh, because it's in a title that I'm staring at. Wow. Just got incepted by a title. What was I saying? I was saying something. Oh, yeah. So, in response to the upcoming elections, French protesters have now come to the streets in both Paris and other French cities. I figured we would look at a couple of these.
On peut travailler tous ensemble. Et oui, en tout cas, je vais y croire.
We can all work together. At least I want to believe that we can. I remain optimistic. My vote won't go to the right. It will absolutely go to the National Rally Party.
Pas sur le vote du Rassemblement National.
Wait. I'm sorry. Did I read that wrong, or did I hear that wrong? Oh, it will not go to the national. Okay, I read that wrong. That was my fault. No, the National Rally. For a second, I was like, what? Oh my God. Yeah. No. Okay, that makes way more sense now. Will not. The National Rally is incredibly right wing. We must prevent the National Rally from appointing a premier in 3 weeks. It's a deadly threat to our democracy and our freedoms and the reputation of our country in the world. DJX, there was a shooting around the corner from you? Wow. Yep. This is America.
Get rid of the Second Amendment.
Okay. I guess we go to this. Just want to continue to look at some of these protests, as the streets are completely filled with protesters. The French love protesting, not gonna lie. It's kind of their thing. President Emmanuel Macron called a snap legislative election after his centrist alliance was trounced by the RN in the ballot.
Faut défendre la liberté.
See, this
la
is the
liberté,
thing.
on peut la défendre.
You know, that's the problem. You know, he's basically a centrist, yeah, and he's complaining about how basically everybody is at fault, while solving nothing with his neoliberalist policies. So. You know, I gotta say, it's very reminiscent of, I feel like, some of our politics here at home in America and other places.
Faut défendre la liberté. La liberté, on peut la
It is necessary to
défendre. En
defend freedom. And in 1793, lots of French people defended
beaucoup de
it. They
Français,
died for this
ils
freedom.
l'ont
That's true.
défendu. Ils
That's
sont
true.
morts pour cette liberté. Aujourd'hui, les
Today,
gens,
what do
qu'est-ce
people
qu'ils
want?
veulent? Je sais pas pourquoi
I don't know why they vote.
ils votent. Ils préfèrent
They prefer the
l'extrême
extreme
droite, le
right,
fascisme.
fascism.
Le fascisme, vous savez,
You
c'est
know what it
quoi?
is?
Sentiment que ça évoque pas de
Feelings, it
sentiment, ça
doesn't
évoque
evoke
de la
feelings. It
colère et du
evokes anger
chagrin.
and sadness.
Parce que, à
Because,
l'exception
with the
d'une
exception
de mes
of one of
futures
my future
grand-mères
grandmothers,
qui était à la
who
messe tous
went
les
to
matins
mass every
et
morning,
qui
and who was a supporter
était
of Marshal
pétainiste,
Philippe Pétain,
tout le reste de ma famille
the
a
rest
été
of my
résistant.
family were in the resistance.
Mon père, ma
My father,
mère,
my
mon
mom,
grand-père,
my grandfather,
et que
and
ma mère, elle a
my other-
été donc
She's got two
dénoncée,
mothers, okay?
arrêtée par la police
Arrested by the
française,
French police,
torturée
tortured
par
by
la
the
Gestapo,
Gestapo,
déportée en Allemagne,
deported to Germany,
et avec 8 de ses co-détenus,
and
elles
with
se
8
sont
of her fellow
évadées de ce qu'on a
prisoners,
appelé la
she
marche de la
escaped from
mort.
what we call the death
Beaucoup de
machetes.
peur, de la déception, parce
lot of
que
fear,
dans un certain sens, il y a une forme de
because it is
compréhension.
in a
Je
certain
pense qu'il y a
sense,
beaucoup de
there's,
Français qui se sont détournés des bureaux de vote.
Oh my God, she
Et
speaks fast. She speaks really fast. Okay. element of understanding.
Compréhension, je pense qu'il y a beaucoup de Français qui sont
men and
détournés des
women who
bureaux de
turned
vote.
away from the
Et
polling
aussi,
stations,
il ne
and
faut
we
pas
must
oublier
also
que
not
quand il y a
forget that when
des
there
élections,
are
l'extrême
elections,
droite,
the
elle se
extreme
mobilise pour
right
aller voter.
mobilizes the
Mais
vote.
c'est pour
But it is
autant
still
quelque
something that
chose qui,
arouses
oui,
fear.
suscite de la peur. Moi, à titre
For me personally, I come from a migrant family.
ma famille est issue de l'immigration.
And to
Et
see
de voir
sometimes
aussi
certain
parfois
behaviors
certains
and looks,
comportements, regards, ça
we are in
on
fact
a
under the
l'impression
impression
de
that we are
ne
no
plus
longer
reconnaître notre France.
recognized in France. Yeah. Yeah, France has been having its own sort of anti-immigrant problems over there. And they got to do something to deal with that. I don't think centrism is necessarily the solution either. But that's what Emmanuel Macron wants. I would say everybody should vote as far to the left as they possibly can. That's just my suggestion in this moment, this power vacuum. Why would you give it back over to the neolibs? Just a question. It's just thinking out loud. I'm not a French citizen. I can't vote, but here's me thinking out loud. France is the reason the U.S. exists. To some degree, that's very true. It's not the only reason, but it's certainly one of the reasons that in the current form that it exists. They certainly had some amount of contribution to it. What was I doing now? Okay, yeah, let's quickly discuss this. By the way, I finally figured out what country the G7 is in. Yesterday, I thought it was in Japan, but no, they were using old footage from the previous G7 summit, which was in Japan. I figured we'd watch this first video just to get us going on this G7, where the 7 leaders are just kind of walking around watching parachute displays. By the way, it's in Italy this year, which is Giorgia Meloni, this woman right here you see. That's she's the Prime Minister of Italy, so she's the one hosting. Well, not her alone, but the Italian people. Is this a golf course? Why are they sending this man to extra events? Who are you talking about specifically? There's multiple men in that frame just now. Could be anybody. I would accept that statement about number of people. But yeah. Now let's go on to this. This is another story from the G7. This is from the AP from 4 hours ago.
Yesterday, Putin put forward a proposal. But we must speak truth. He is not calling for negotiations. He is calling for surrender. America stands...
I just realized, wait a second, this isn't actually the G7. Hold on, I take it back. I take it all back. Hold the phone. That means I need to talk about something. Hold on. Because we're talking about the G7. Hold on. Why is this here? I just made myself very angry. Damn you. Okay, so the Prime Minister of Italy, who you might not be familiar with, I wouldn't blame you. Italy isn't always the most important country, well, that's rude. Isn't always in the news that much. We don't talk about Italy very much, but we've recently talked about Italy in regards to some of the fascist undercurrents that are there happening amidst some of its citizens. We watched a story recently about people who go on parades honoring Mussolini and other sorts of insane right-wing ideologies, just to familiarize you with who Giorgia Meloni is, as she's the Prime Minister of Italy, the country hosting the G7 this year. Giorgia Meloni joined the Youth Front in 1992 as a kid, the youth wing of the Italian Social Movement. Now, the Italian Social Movement is a neo-fascist political party in Italy, and is a defender of Italian fascism and the legacy of Mussolini, and then went on to become Prime Minister by way of a bunch of political activism, if you could call it, and other sorts of things. She also has some, I think, some family connections in government as well in some places, but yeah, she's got some absolutely wild ideologies about, I don't know, immigrants and the quote-unquote nuclear family, LGBTQ people, and so on and so forth. If you can't imagine what those are, I would just direct you to, I don't know, a Republican in the United States. A very similar sort of hate-mongering type of rhetoric. In fact, I think she's at some point been for almost just forced births to tackle the migrant crisis, as she's put it. But of Italian citizens. I'm not joking. It sounds insane and it's some kind of a joke, but no, it's not. It's real life. Okay. Now, let's look at something less terrible and more historical. This is from a day ago. Where apparently a discovery has been revealed at Pompeii. If you're unfamiliar, Pompeii was completely destroyed by a volcano by the name of Mount Vesuvius in, I can't remember the year, but it was very
Tonight,
nearly,
a rare glimpse into the
0
distant
AD.
past. So this, oh wow, this is the Blue Room?
It's a very special thing.
A stunning room hidden for centuries under 20 feet of volcanic debris, revealed for the first time. It's so vibrant. Archaeologists think it's a shrine covered in breathtaking frescoes and rare Egyptian blue paint. On the floor, piles of construction materials left just as they were when Mount Vesuvius erupted nearly 2,000 years ago. What did you think when you first saw this room, the Blue Room?
I was stunned. You can see these really fine details and evidence. That's just incredible.
These MIT students already on site, using specially adapted night vision goggles and handheld scanners to study the new finds.
Nobody's really looked at these materials before.
This room, one of many recently unearthed in the biggest dig in a generation. Vast banquet halls, working bakeries, children's drawings, all preserved by the volcanic debris. Archaeologists have been digging here for more than 200 years. It's the most intact example of a Roman city in the world.
Cool. I mean, we're all aware of probably of this site, but I just thought it was a cool little development. It was in 79 AD. Thank you. So yeah, it was like it was pretty close to the year 0, especially considering what year it is right now. Certainly closer to the year 0 than it is to the year 2024. We have time to talk about this? Or Roman Empire obsession ensues. It was not Roman Empire obsession, it was a mere Roman tidbit. What was I doing? Oh yeah. Yeah. I feel like we have time for this. Actually, no, we'll do this a different day. Alright, let's look at this. Where in the Netherlands, a street in The Hague is getting an all-encompassing orange facelift for Euro 2024. So yeah, Netherlands is hosting the Euro 2024 soccer tournament, or if you're anywhere but America, football tournament. And
praatje maken, de kinderen vinden het leuk, de
you meet
mensen
other
vinden
people,
het
have a
leuk.
chat, the children like it, the people like it. Really brings people together. That is our number one priority in a multicultural neighborhood. And yes, we have all different people here on the street in this neighborhood, and yeah. So, yeah, the Hague is getting a facelift for Euro 2024. And, yeah, I just thought that we would look at this, partly because Euro 2024 is kind of, it's kind of big. And also, we're talking about The Hague all the time, but for different reasons. Used to work in The Hague? That's very interesting. See, look at that. It even had a relevance to a chatter. What next? What should we do? I say we go to this. Talk about Russia a little bit. Evan Gershkovich, if you're not aware, is a former, well, not former, I think he technically still works for the Wall Street Journal, but he's been held in Russia and is now being formally charged with espionage. The trial is set to begin soon.
U.S. reporter Evan Gershkovich, who's been jailed for over a year in Russia on espionage charges, is set to stand trial. Officials allege that the Wall Street Journal reporter was gathering secret information on orders from the CIA about a military equipment plant in Russia, but they don't provide any evidence. Gershkovich, his employer, and the U.S. government denied the charges. Russian authorities said that his indictment has been finalized and his case was sent to a court in the Ural Mountains city of Yekaterinburg, where Gershkovich was arrested in March 2023. If convicted, he faces up to 20 years in prison.
My God.
The U.S. government has designated him as wrongfully detained and has been actively seeking his release.
20 years in prison, huh? For journalism. Wait, no, spying. Okay. Well, let's talk about some more Russian stuff because Vladimir Putin is kind of upset. I don't know if you heard, but a bunch of EU nations, I think also the United States was involved, have frozen more Russian assets, and I believe they declared they're going to use them to rebuild Ukraine. And he's a little upset about that. So let's hear what he's got to say about this. Western countries have now frozen a portion of Russia's assets and foreign exchange reserves, and are now thinking about some kind of legal basis in order to completely appropriate them. But despite all of the scheming, theft will remain theft and will not go unpunished. Calls to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia, which has the largest arsenal of nuclear weapons, demonstrates the extreme... Wait, hold on. The extreme adventurism of Western politicians. They either don't understand the scale of the threat that they create, or are simply obsessed with the belief in their impunity and their exclusivity. Wow. Now, this is a serious gaslighting moment for old Vlad. The fact is to suggest that it's other people creating the threat while also threatening nuclear war. It's a real paradoxical sort of statement when you think about it. It's like it's like, you know, it's like it's the bully, right, grabbing the fist and you know, punching the weak kid and saying, why are you punching yourself, and whatever else. And it's like, no, you're the one who's threatening nuclear war. People are just trying to stop you from waging the current war that you're waging, and you're the one who's saying that that's going to lead to nuclear attacks by you. So, you know, not shocking. More gaslighting from Putin. Not that it's not concerning. It's incredibly concerning, honestly. And the fact that he would be threatening that over economic sanctions, considering how many economic sanctions have already been imposed on Russia, just seems just wildly inappropriate. Now, here is Lloyd Austin saying something true for the first time in maybe his whole life. All right, not his whole life, but it's been a real long time since I've heard him say something factual. This is from a day ago, where Lloyd Austin said this.
Putin has illegally occupied sovereign Ukrainian territory. He is not in any position to dictate to Ukraine what they must do to bring about a peace. I think, you know, that's exactly the kind of behavior that we don't want to see. We don't want to see a leader of one country wake up one day and decide that he wants to erase borders and annex the territory of his neighbor. That's not.
Wait, hold on.
The world that any of us want to live in, and so I think, you know, he is not in my view, not in a position to dictate to Ukraine what it must do to pursue peace. Putin can end this war today.
Now, I find this fascinating for so many reasons. The fact is what he's saying is correct. All that shit was right. Hold on, Aaron. I got stuff to say. So, all of what he just said was totally correct. Putin started it. He can stop it at any time. But the rest of what he said, the contents of the rest of the statement, he said, apply in some other places, right? Like, for instance, Israel and Gaza. Almost an exact parallel to the thing that he just said just now. You know, like, come on. Where is the other? Where's the sister statement to that one saying that Israel can't do whatever the hell it wants and just annex territory, and it's not the sort of vibe that we're into. You know, where's that statement, please? Because I'd like to hear that one too. A little consistency would be great, in terms of international law, among other things. Okay, now I'll let Aaron get. Actually, no, fuck you, Aaron. We're skipping you. I'm moving on to this. Let's talk about this real quick. This is from a day ago. This might as well have been a statement put out directly by the U.S. Navy, but it's actually from the Associated Press. However, the contents of it, to some degree, are worthy of discussion. So yeah, let's watch this video where the AP talks about how the U.S. Navy is finding itself locked in combat against Yemen's Houthi rebels. And in fact is the most combat that the U.S. Navy has seen since World War II.
Currently have pretty high confidence that not only is Iran providing financial support, but they're providing intelligence support as well. And then finally, the one that gets most of the news is the kinetic support that they provide, the weapons. We know for a fact the Houthis...
And I mean, the United States and Israel are also trading support and things like that. Let's not forget that.
Have also gotten training to target maritime shipping and target U.S. warships as well.
I don't think people really understand just kind of how deadly serious it is what we're doing, and how under threat the ships continue to be. I mean,
Well, I think that the reason that people don't understand that is because the United States government doesn't want to what's the word? Like educate the American public on the fact that the support for Israel is in fact putting troops at risk, even if they're not on the ground. You know, even if the boots don't touch the ground, doesn't mean that we don't have other ways of putting, you know, Americans at risk. Like by physically supporting Israel in its current campaign of ethnic cleansing and genocide on Palestinians. The U.S. support of Israel makes an utter farce of this. I assume that's in relation to what I was talking about with Lloyd Austin over there. Yeah, it does. It really does. Yep. And to discuss that, in terms of the farce of our current political climate, let's look at this. From 4 days ago. If you haven't seen this yet, pro-Palestinian protesters interrupted Biden's speech while at a rally of some sort. I'll let this video speak for the rest of it. Don't need the title.
The main reason I'm here to say, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart.
Hold on, pal. What is going on? Why is my stream software decided to stop working? Of course, because we're 3 hours in. Happens every 3 hours. On the dot. Don't know why. Very strange. Good? Okay. Wobegon.
The main reason I'm here to say, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. No.
Now, I want to listen to this again, but listen to the tone of Biden's voice here. I think he's starting to recognize the fact that his policy is becoming deeply problematic for his election chances this fall. And having supporters like this is also not helping either. You know, all these oh god, it's fucking just wild just neoliberal thinking going on.
No. Folks, it's okay. Look, they care. Innocent children have been lost. They make a full point.
Wow, these people can't even agree to that. Hearing it from Joe Biden and the fact that most of his supporters don't seem to think that innocent children have been lost. They're more concerned with chanting 4 more years at people protesting genocide.
Come on now.
Thank you for honoring gun violence survivors.
That Karen, I mean, the fact is, I'm not saying that we shouldn't honor gun violence survivors, but to say somehow that, I mean, that is one of the most tone-deaf things I've ever heard in this moment, is to yell at people protesting a literal genocide happening. You know, people who are getting shot daily, right? To say that over somebody who's asking for that to stop is just wildly inappropriate. It's so, oh, good God. And of all people, I think that I get to say this because I constantly talk about gun violence every goddamn day. I think it's a major issue we had to fucking deal with. But the genocide is definitely... You don't shout down the genocide with that, please. That's the wrong time. It's the wrong time. Or, well, you know what I mean. Not the genocide, but people protesting the genocide. Oh, God. I hate the way words are. Can't I just not ever say words again? I think that'd be better. There's too many word choices and ways to frame sentences and to structure these things we call sentences and thoughts. Go on and on. Just doing everything different. Not allowed, I have to keep talking. Oh, God, that's terrible. It's terrible for humanity. You know what's worse for humanity? What's happening in Gaza. Not according to me, but according to a very recent UN probe. This is from 3 days ago from Reuters, discussing that very UN probe.
Both Israel and Hamas had committed war crimes in the early stages of the war in Gaza, a UN inquiry found on Wednesday. It also says Israel's actions constituted crimes against humanity because of the immense civilian losses. The findings were from 2 parallel reports published by the UN Commission of Inquiry, one focusing on the October 7th Hamas attacks and another on Israel's military response in Gaza. Israel did not cooperate with the commission, which it says has an anti-Israeli bias. Israel's diplomatic mission to the UN in Geneva rejected the findings. Hamas did not immediately respond to a request for comment. According to Israeli tallies, 1,200 people were killed and about 250 were taken hostage in the October 7th attack. The Palestinian Health Ministry says the military retaliation in Gaza has since killed over 37,000 people. The reports, which
and wounded at least, I think, 80,000. I'm glad that, you know what, this is one of the things that really bugs me about the framing of the mainstream media, such as Reuters, right? They felt it necessary to contextualize October 7th for us once again, to give us the numbers from October 7th, which we've all heard ad nauseum 100,000 times in the last 8 months, but didn't decide to discuss just how many people were wounded, which is an absolutely insane number. Somehow that context isn't also necessary, right? Because it literally, I mean, and the number of people who have died is fucking insane, right? But like, it literally dwarfs that number. It's 3-1.
The conflict through the end of December found that both sides committed war crimes, including torture, murder or willful killing, outrages upon personal dignity, and inhuman or cruel treatment. The report added Israel also committed additional war crimes, including starvation as a method of warfare. The COI statement said some of the war crimes, such as murder, also constituted crime against humanity by Israel, using a term reserved for the most serious international crimes knowingly committed as part of a widespread or systematic attack against civilians. On the report on the October 7th attack, the Commission verified 4 incidents of mass killings in public shelters. It said that suggests militants had standing operational instructions. It also identified a pattern of sexual violence by Palestinian armed.
Did it? Because I remember that being refuted earlier this year. Reuters doing their best to give us that sweet, sweet Hasbra. It's easier. It's easier than doing journalism, let's be real. Somebody's already written the copy for them, they just have to read it. It's like Sinclair Broadcasting. In fact, I feel like what we need is like some sort of Sinclair Broadcasting mashup, like the one that John Oliver did with the words October 7th. Because I think that could probably go on into eternity. Like it literally for millennia. We're at 40 likes now. We have 4 support characters. What happened? Did we lose likes and then get likes back? Or did YouTube take likes away from us because we're not good enough? Am I turtly enough for the Turtle Club? I'll give you another one. You deserve it. Plus, we have so many, I just want to see them now. I've made so many support characters. You all deserve it. Okay, let's go to this, because remember that $3 billion aid pier that was built by the US government to bring aid to Gaza, which all experts said was going to be a very bad and band-aid on a problem that requires surgery type of deal. Well, that pier has been removed. Apparently, according to satellite imagery data. Hold. Why? Why is my software doing this right now? 13. Wait, is that 13 or 15? 13. Who's 13? Oh, shit. I can't even do it right now. We gotta wait until it switches scenes for me. Because it's done it, like, kind of, but I'm actually Not even able to edit this screen you're looking at right now because it's totally fucking frozen. All right, let's just look at the satellite images. Hopefully it'll fix itself. So yeah, one of these is from the 12th. The one on the right is from the 15th. And this is wild. If this is true, if this is real, it looks like they actually, like the entire thing, including the portion that was sticking into the beach, has been completely taken away. This is such a waste. This is such a waste of U.S. tax dollars and time and effort, human energy. An anonymous U.S. official said that the military was moving it due to anticipated sea conditions, and that it would likely be moved to the Israeli port of Ashdod until sea conditions improve. How's that going to help anybody? Now that is just wild. They're going to go bring it to Israel? Israel needs an aid port? Wow. Amazing. Yeah. That'll help. That'll help. Oh, God. We suck. You two were thinking not early enough for the Turtle Club? It's a great quote. Yep, $300 million while we have tens of thousands of homeless people in the United States and people in poverty in the millions. And yeah, it's very helpful for everybody. I'm sure moving it doesn't cost anything either. It's probably free. Moving appears easy, right? Let's go to this. From 8 hours ago. This is from TRT World. According to them, this is how Israel employed a secret army to enforce Zionist narratives on Wikipedia.
Your name, please?
If you Google Nusayrat refugee camp massacre, a variety of results will appear on your screen. But if you look closely at the right-hand side of your screen, Wikipedia is calling it a rescue operation. You might be wondering why a recent Israeli military attack that killed over 200 Palestinians in central Gaza's Nusayrat refugee camp is being described as a rescue operation. The answer lies in Wikipedia's status as the world's most read encyclopedia,
Ooh, it switched
one that's
screens.
created and edited by global volunteers. And when it comes to Palestine, things are always convoluted. An editing war regarding the portrayal of the Nusayrat refugee camp massacre is underway among Wikipedia volunteers. On one side are pro-Israeli editors pushing out the Nusayrat rescue operation narrative with an aim to exonerate Israelis of the massacre, champion the Israeli army, and minimize Palestinian casualties. On the other side are the editors calling for the recognition of the event as an actual massacre. While one editor argues that the casualty count raises doubts about the rescue operation, another editor responds by denying that a massacre even occurred. Controlling the pro-Palestine narrative on Wikipedia is not new, especially when it comes to Israel's practice of settler colonialism and its decades-long occupation involving the brutal and systematic oppression of Palestinians. The platform's global readership influences opinions worldwide on Israel's ongoing military offensive in Palestine's Gaza, which has already killed more than 37,000 people. Most of the talking points among moderators echo those of Hasbara, Israel's state-funded program devoted to shaping narratives, suppressing all negative commentary, and whitewashing its image.
By the way, I feel like we should all remember that practically every time you hear the words Israeli or a state-funded program, some portion of that money is coming directly from the United States. And so yeah. At least partially, the United States has helped pay for Israel to hire a literal army of Wikipedia moderators to attempt to disseminate Israeli propaganda.
For example, the term Israeli occupation, which is often changed to Israeli rule. Israel's Zionist groups have been conducting workshops and campaigns on Wikipedia for decades to rewrite Palestinian history. Influencing Wikipedia is a big deal for Israel's public diplomacy. In 2010, a course on Zionist editing for Wikipedia was launched by 2 Israeli groups. One of these groups was the Yesha Council, a Zionist settler group led by Israel's former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett.
We want to be good.
If that's who you want editing Wikipedia, a Zionist settler group. My God. Those people do not want reality.
Guys who influence what is written there, how it's written, and to ensure that it's balanced and Zionist in nature.
In 2008, a leaked email showed how Camera, a pro-Israeli group focused on the media, sought out a secret army of Wikipedia volunteers who could work as editors to influence the Israel-Palestine narrative, smear Palestinians, and impose Israel's agenda without being detected. Soon after, Wikipedia administrators imposed a lifetime ban on at least 5 moderators. In 2020, another pro-Israeli advocacy group called the Israel Group launched Wiki Israel, an initiative that doxes anti-Israel editors and takes steps to overcome what it claims is Wikipedia's bias.
Wild. So, a secondary group to attack people promoting facts and history. Okay. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Totally normal. Good God. Okay, that's a frustrating story, but it does definitely make you think about, you know, and I think that it's important for people to be aware of this so that every time you look at Wikipedia, especially as it pertains to this particular subject, that hopefully you did. Oh my God, Twitch just ran an ad without asking. Well, if you haven't subscribed, unfortunately, you've just been subjected to capitalist advertising by Jeff Bezos. That's unfortunate. But this this particular situation, I just think it's important for people to be aware of that. So every time you look at Wikipedia, you know that there may have been some hand may have been involved in changing that, you know, literally paid for by Israel to make it so that it what's the word? Like coheres with Zionism, essentially, or with Israeli Hasbara, and it is just, you know, hopefully it'll make people think twice when they read on Wikipedia. Why can't life be simple? That'd be great. I would like that. Fortunately, it's got a lot of moving pieces. A lot of moving pieces to life. Some would say the most. Lost my place. Ah, yes. Okay. Actually, I kind of want to do this one first. Why do I have it set up this way? No, we're doing it this way. Hold on. Let's start with this one from Al Jazeera. This is from, I think, a few days ago. No, actually, this is from yesterday.
If you Google Nusayr...
Yeah, so this is just simply put. The title is, quote-unquote, The Narrative War.
On May 6th, the Israeli government began its military operation in and around the city of Rafah in southern Gaza, and almost immediately it attracted international condemnation, not just from governments, not just from protesters, but also from the world's top legal minds. But why now? Israel's operation to defeat Hamas has been going on for months, and Israel has been committing human rights abuses against the Palestinians for decades. So what's changed? I'm Mariam Namazi, and this is Pinch Point, where politics and geography collide.
By the way,
On May
I don't know if you noticed, but you now have Jocelyn Bell Burnell, the discoverer of quasars? No, pulsars. Who didn't receive a Nobel Prize because she was a woman, but then later on did in fact receive a Nobel Prize. Because nobody could keep Jocelyn Bell Burnell down.
26th, an Israeli airstrike hit a camp for displaced people in Rafah. At least 45 refugees were killed, mostly women and children.
There is no security in Gaza. There is no security, not for a child, an elderly man, or for a woman.
The humanitarian group MSF, Doctors Without Borders, treated people with shrapnel wounds, fractures, and burns. MSF denounced the attack and pointed out that it had happened after the International Court of Justice had ordered an immediate stop to the military assault on Rafah. The judges cited the catastrophic humanitarian situation in the city and the huge threat posed to the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who'd sought.
Is it just me, or does Worf look concerned that Jocelyn's discovering pulsars over here?
Refuge there. International condemnation of the attack was swift and intense. The French President Emmanuel Macron said he was outraged. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock and the EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell said the ruling by the ICJ judges must be respected. Canada's government used its social media accounts to describe the Israeli attack as horrific.
Palestinian civilians do not have any safe space to go.
Earlier in May, the chief prosecutor at another court, the International Criminal Court in The Hague, announced that he is seeking an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for crimes against humanity and war crimes in Gaza. Now governments appear finally to be waking up to what protesters have been saying for months, that Israel's policy of forcing more than 1 million Palestinians into so-called safe zones to clear the way.
Yeah, that's Worf. It's Worf from the most current iteration of Star Trek, where Worf came back, but as, you know, a slightly older Worf. Isn't it spelled W-O-R-F?
For its tanks to move on Hamas is a catastrophic abuse of human rights. But again, why the outrage now? Well, let's go back to those events at the ICC, because never before, never has the court announced an impending arrest warrant of a head of a democratic state that is an ally of the US. But the administration of President Joe Biden is in a bind. There's an election coming up, and poll after poll suggests Americans disapprove of Israel's actions in Gaza. And those polls were taken before these attacks on Rafah. Israel has always depended on the US for support, politically and militarily. These days, that support looks a lot more conditional. At the same time, Israel's PR machine appears to be losing control of the narrative. The spaces where Israel likes to operate are Tel Aviv and Washington, D.C., but now there's a new player in the mix, The Hague, where the ICJ and the ICC sit. Is Israel now...
Okay. I just figured we'd watch that because we were already talking about Israeli narratives and their just insistence on really putting an incredible amount of effort to form and shape a narrative as it relates to all of this. What just happened? Ooh, I like that. What is that? I like that a lot. A lot of Michael Dorn talk in chat right now. Okay, what was I doing? Ah, yes. If we're going to continue talking about this to some degree. Oh, I'm getting distracted. The infinite Jessicas keep looking at me on Twitch right now. The Hasbro tactics are more quantity over quality. Well played. That's factually accurate. It's just true.
Arguably the greatest work of nonfiction of the 20th century.
What was I doing? Yes, that's it. Let's go to this from Al Jazeera as well. This is from yesterday, where they have discussed the political headache of the hostages as it relates to Benjamin Netanyahu.
Four Israelis rescued, 270 Palestinians killed, and no ceasefire deal yet. The headlines may be bad, but this is playing out pretty much exactly as Benjamin Netanyahu wants it to. In Jordan, you're on dangerous ground if you accuse the state of complicity with Israel. And Giorgia Meloni's domination over Italy's public broadcaster RAI is leaving very little room for critical journalism.
By the way, I haven't seen Picard yet, so no spoilers, Chris Garrett.
Through the more than 8 months of the war in Gaza, one issue above all else has obsessed much of Israeli society. It's the hostages. On news bulletins, in polls, in the national consciousness, the fate of the Israelis held as prisoners of war in Gaza is a big story. Around 120 out of the approximately 240 abducted by Hamas fighters on October 7th remain in captivity. The dramatic extraction of 4 of them in an Israeli army operation has made some things starkly evident. First, a ceasefire is the most effective process to rescue hostages. A deal in November freed 105 Israelis. Second, Palestinian lives will be sacrificed in any rescue. More than 270 were massacred in the recent assault. And third, politically the most vital point in Israel right now is that for Prime Minister Netanyahu, the hostage matter is something he pays lip service to, but it's a headache. It gets in the way of what seems to be Netanyahu's effort to prolong this war in order to prolong his own political career.
Seriously, and we've been talking about this because the hostages have, you know, at least in my estimation, and not just mine, I've heard other people say this, that the hostages are, and this is a pretty gross analogy, but are essentially a political pawn for Benjamin Netanyahu to continue being in charge of Israel's government, as they're being used as an excuse or as a premise for the genocidal onslaught that the IDF has been waging on Gaza, as their claims has been the only way to get the hostages back and to get Israel safe is by doing that, right? And you know, without that, he starts running out of reasons here. Now, this one's really long, so we're not going to watch this whole thing, but we definitely need to watch more of this. Hold on. Actually, we're going to let them go for a little bit, then I might speed it up.
החטופים שלנו, שהמשפחות שלהם כבר באמת חשבו על הנורא מכל זאת, ופתאום לראות אותם כאן, על הרגליים, בריאים ושלמים.
It was a day of high emotion in Israel. After being held for nearly 250 days in captivity in Gaza, 4 Israeli hostages had been extracted by the army. Operation Seeds of Summer, the code name initially given to the hostage rescue campaign, was celebrated across Israel. The jubilation was not just about the return of captives kidnapped by Hamas fighters during the October 7th attack. It was about the reassertion of Israel's military might.
את עם ישראל כולו זוכים להיות גם חלק מרגעים כאלה של התעלות, של הצלחה, של ישראליות, צריך להגיד.
אני חושב שעם שלם בוכה יחד איתך עכשיו.
The operation was hailed as proof that despite its catastrophic failure to protect the nation 8 months ago, the army was back in control.
Okay, hold on. Gotta move this faster a little bit. There's definitely some spots we gotta hit in here. Yeah, right about here.
Massacres that the Israeli army inflicted on the Palestinian civilians in the camp.
The military correspondents gave greatly detailed accounts recounting the drama of the rescue.
קצין בכיר מאוד שאנחנו משוחחים איתו היום והיה שותף לכמה מבצעים מאוד מאוד
A very senior officer that we spoke to today who participated in, oh god damn it.
הוא לא ראה.
Fuck it. I'm not reading it.
Released some quite dramatic body camera footage, but it does seem like a one-off, I think, even to people who are excited about it. There's a recognition that this sort of thing is not replicable.
Already the hostage situation has dragged on much longer than Israelis have wanted. There are 120 captives still remaining in Gaza. At least a third of them have reportedly been killed in Israeli airstrikes.
There are 120 more abductees for whom the Israeli government
have come together.
Wait, sorry, I did not see that. For whom the Israeli government needs to reach a deal.
The families of the hostages have come together to become one of the most persistent pressure groups on the Israeli government.
What is more important to you, building settlements in Gaza or bringing back the hostages?
At every stage of this war, the hostage families have criticized, lamented, and berated what they call a self-serving leadership. And across Israel, the cause of the hostages has popular sympathy and support.
Every single interaction you have in Israel has something to do with the hostages. When I tried on a blouse in a boutique, there was a poster in the changing cabin that said, "Bring them home now."
My God.
Every single shop window has the stencil, hashtag "Bring them home now." Bring them home now was the Wi-Fi password at a cafe I work at in Tel Aviv. There are pictures of the hostages taped to park benches, plastered on walls. Everyone knows all their names.
If that's not the definition of, like, consensus, I don't know what it is. But that seems to be the place to start. And it seems like more and more of the people who have been calling for the hostages to be released are realizing the only way for that to happen in a reasonable way and time is for a deal to happen, a ceasefire deal, which the Israeli government has, no matter how much they say it's Hamas that doesn't want to negotiate, time and time again we have seen all evidence leads to the contrary, and it's actually Israel who wants nothing to do with that. And we were just talking about Benjamin Netanyahu generally needs for this war to keep going on because otherwise he would face a great deal of political pressure at home.
The hostage issue is very emotive for Israelis, as it would be for any people in the world. If their people are taken hostage, they would want them back. The problem for Netanyahu is that the war effort to free the hostages is not...
And actually, let me amend what I was just saying, because technically I'm using the wrong word here, because he's already under a great deal of pressure. We've seen how many protests and other things are happening right now. But really, I should be saying that it leads to a great deal of vulnerability for him, because there's been already calls for elections by some, and it would almost certainly happen once this quote-unquote war is over.
They had just freed 4 the other day with this very vicious raid, but the only ones that were released when there was a ceasefire.
I don't think it's controversial to say.
Okay. Actually, no, I think I remember what hold on.
Returning the hostages has not been a priority for the Netanyahu government. When Netanyahu announced the ultimate aims of this war, which were returning the hostages and then total victory as he claimed it over Hamas, it's been pretty clear that his administration has pursued the latter. The hostage families have been protesting almost every week. They don't seem to have...
Yeah, why are you asking Nightbot for the lyrics to Vanessa Carlton? What is happening? My God. You think Nightbot's insulting Vanessa Carlton? It's possible. It's possible. Okay, what was I doing? Ah, yes, focusing on this. We're not done with this video. Just getting distracted.
Wall to wall, day after day, with news of the evacuees.
A lot has been made of the fact in Israeli media that these hostages appear to have been held in civilian homes. And of course that bolsters the common Israeli narrative that there's no uninvolved people in Gaza, which is to say that all Gazans are participants in what Hamas is doing. At the same time, a lot of hostages have openly said that they certainly feared for their lives from their captives, but what they also feared was that they might be killed in Israeli airstrikes, that they could hear the bombs falling, they could feel the ground shake.
Right now in Israel, there's a lot of management on what Israelis actually hear about the experience of people held in captivity in the Gaza Strip. But what little comes out shows that there is at least some sort of humane treatment of these Israelis. And I think that that's important to also register because it contrasts with the current paradigm that Israel has used in its prisons, using isolation, the deprivation of food, lack of sleep, stress positions. Prisoners are coming out having lost tens of kilograms. And the picture that we're getting is largely from Palestinian prisoners coming from the West Bank and not from Gaza, because prisoners of Gaza are suffering even more brutality. They're made to bark. They're always shackled. Almost 36 Palestinian prisoners from Gaza have been killed under these severe conditions.
Under Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel has intensified its occupation and apartheid. And since October last year, it has been carrying out what has been deemed a plausible genocide of Palestinians.
Yep.
Netanyahu and his political greed have been central to all this. In his nearly 2 decades at the heart of government, he has manipulated and massaged the system to keep himself in power, allying with ever more extreme political actors and dominating the narrative in a way that means no dirt ever really sticks, be it corruption, moral depravity, or a narcissistic agenda that is to the detriment of the nation. Even now, with so many in Israel blaming him for the disastrous war and the untenable hostage situation, Netanyahu has made the rescue all about himself.
Haaretz published an editorial cartoon by the inimitable Amos Biderman that shows a military helicopter with a pilot, and next to the pilot in the passenger seat is Noah Agamon, who's one of the most well-known hostages taken on October 7th. And Netanyahu is waving, and the caption is, "I'm responsible," meaning I take credit.
The fact is that the majority of Israelis support Netanyahu's policies. They may not like him, they may not like his personal conduct, but the context which Netanyahu exploits very well is to constantly tell his people,
if we need to stand alone, we will stand alone. I have said that it is necessary, we will fight with our fingernails, but we have much more than fingernails, no shit. And with the same strength of spirit and God's help, we will win.
Teach the Palestinians a lesson in Gaza that they'll never forget and carry out this genocide. And the majority of Israelis say, yes, go ahead, we're with you.
And that's been one of the main problems here we've been talking about in terms of even supporting the protesters who want the hostages back. Many of them have been completely in support of this. Now, however, recently we have looked at a few stories and things where there does seem to be a slight shift in that narrative, even if it is very slight. But I am starting to notice a lot more anti-war signs, if you will, even though we might like to change the wording on these signs. It is definitely something that is problematic for Netanyahu, because if he loses the support of people's for the onslaught that the IDF is currently carrying out in Gaza, then then he will have completely run out of any support now, because people hate him as a person already in Israel, right? And it could be a small but important step in a shift in the narrative that may allow for things to change, because it doesn't seem like anything has slowed Israel down. The threat of taking away arms from them, they stopped. They didn't care about that. The red line in Rafah never existed to them, and to the people who drew it, specifically the Biden administration, among others, and you know, a whole host of other things that they've just completely ignored, like the ICJ ruling, like the ICC looking for arrest warrants, and most recently the declaration by the UN probe saying that they had committed crimes against humanity. Okay, got like 2 stories left here, so penultimate story. Made it this far. This one is also from Al Jazeera, where Palestinians in Gaza are being denied aid, protection, and dignity. We probably already all knew.
For more on the humanitarian situation in Gaza, we're now joined by James Elder, who's spokesman for UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund. He is live from Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. Mr. Elder, thank you very much for being with us. You were last in Gaza 6 weeks ago, I understand. How would you compare the situation now and then in terms of the humanitarian crisis? How much more desperate is it for the people of Gaza?
Fally, it's dire. It should surprise no one that it is this much worse, because again, in the last 6 weeks, every single day we've had the bombardments, the drones, the relentless attacks, the denials of aid. So it shouldn't surprise anyone, but it should break our hearts and a blight on our humanity that it's been allowed to get to this point. We are now at a point where I'm outside a hospital again. This is a wartime hospital. As soon as I walked in, Fally, I found a little boy, Ali, who 5 days ago was asleep in the family home when it was struck, and the next thing he fell 3 floors and landed in rubble. I met his mother 2 stories above. She explained that 2 other siblings have been killed. This has gone on for the last 6 weeks, Fally. This has gone on for 250 days. Now, of course, it's sweltering heat. People say to me, oh, people must be used to that. Yes, they are used to the heat. Gazans are used to the heat in their family home, in their home with air conditioning, in their home with ceiling fans, not in tents crammed together in a breathless space with 40-degree heat on sand. This is what people are. They're being denied aid, they're being denied protection, they're being denied dignity. And whilst the last 3 days, Fally, have been sleepless because of the bombs and the drones, it's 250 days for the civilians here. So yes, everyone here, physically, psychologically, is somehow just holding on.
I'll ask you a bit more about the impact of the war on children in just a moment, but I just wanted to get to aid, because you mentioned aid there. How much of it has gone into Gaza in the last few days? I understand you were part of a convoy of aid trucks that were trying to get into the Gaza Strip. Can you describe to us the process of that, what it takes to get those aid trucks into Gaza, and how many have gone in these past few days?
Yeah, it's a very complicated process to get in because of the restrictions put on top of aid. But we do it. We know the paperwork. We know the hoops to jump through. But it is very difficult to get aid in. For example, in May, humanitarian agents got in half as many trucks of aid, Fali, as in April. Half as many. When we have
half as many in May as there were in April, and I think we all know that in April there weren't enough aid trucks to come in. So half as many is not enough. That's where things are at. This guy's from UNICEF, so I think he probably knows what he's talking about. Oh, so frustrating that anybody can see this and think, continue. This is fine. Okay, let's go to this. When did the pier get built? It was in like April, I think. Like late April. It got destroyed weeks ago, though. We were talking about it like I want to say like literally 2 weeks ago. Most of it already had broken off. Because like you remember, like it was shaped like a T, but now it was just reduced to a very sad looking eye, and then gone by what, a day ago? Yesterday? Yeah. Yep. God. Okay, let's go to this one. Huh. This is the last one. As this one also probably will not be shocking to anyone, but children in Gaza are suffering from disease due to malnutrition, among other things. The fact is that cramming people into these very small quarters, not giving them food, not giving them sanitation, destroying all of those things, in fact, is going to lead to dramatic health consequences. And children and old people are the first ones to be affected by those kinds of things.
Well, let's talk about this now to Rana Zouater, who's a clinical nutritionist and is joining us live from Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. Rana, thank you so much for being with us on Al Jazeera. As we've been reporting, thousands of Palestinian children have been diagnosed with malnutrition. According to the World Health Organization, 32 of them have died from it so far. Can you tell us what is driving this sharp escalation in malnutrition cases in Gaza?
Good morning, first of all, it's my pleasure to be here. About the children under 2 years, there are a lot of reasons to have starvation and malnutrition. They feel thirsty and contaminated water also. There is no food security and there is no humanitarian aid.
Exactly, and that's another thing. The fact is without proper sanitation, without proper water services, the water that people are drinking is compromised in multiple ways, depending on the places that they're getting it from. And it's, oh God, I can't even, it's just, I try to imagine having to deal with that myself, and it's just fucking horrifying.
A lot of diarrhea. 90% of these children suffered from diarrhea and from hepatitis and other diseases. So they have no food insecurity, and they have unprocessed all this food, contaminated and processed food. It's when we give a choice the children how to take vegetables or eggs. Right. Both of these are not found still now, and yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I'd point out people can't just eat grains forever and survive. You do, in fact, need other nutrients as a human being. Oh, God. This just needs to end. This all just needs to end. People need to get saved from this goddamn hell that they're living in. It's just utterly tragic. And I'm sorry to end the stream with that, but that was our last video. Well, made it through another one, Space Fams. It's a pleasure having you all here tonight. I'm afraid that's it for me. Till I see you next time. You stay classy, Galactic Stream Nation. Well, can't forget this. These are your galactic patrons. Gabby, Goth Dogs, Aaron W, Mitty, PB, Robot Cat, Morbius Dragon, The Anti-Corporatist, Boanoa, Nadia, Miss Jen, Pitchforks Dragon, Vincent Morales, and Donald James X. That's right. All these individuals here have made the decision to help support what I do here at the Galactic News Network. You too can do the same thing for just a few American dollars a month. Write that down.
Thanks, Jeff, for the question.
got something else I have to talk to us about. While people are engaging the super secret late night after hours Galactic Chill stream, there's a elite group of galactic individuals whom you may not be familiar with. But we, must discuss them. These, people here, such as Moanoib, are galactic benefactors. That's right, that's right. Hold on, I need the music. There we go. Got the music. That's right. The Galactic Benefactors. An elite group of galactic patrons who have decided to go above and beyond. They've decided that the Galactic News Network must go on, and therefore they've decided to contribute as much as they possibly can. People like Nadia, whom I actually haven't seen in chat that recently, but is a often contributor of all of her thoughts and ideas. Also Moanoib, who you probably know from chat, as she is one of the galactic mods, always making sure that things are a-okay in chat, as well as doing all sorts of other great things, not just in chat but in life. We can't forget PB, who I think is in this chat practically every single stream that I do. She is constantly helping contribute to what we do here. And yeah, I think you should all remember these folks. Alright, well, Galactic Benefactors. Great. You can become a Galactic Benefactor on Patreon for, I think it's like $6.